Hey everyone, and unmute Mark there because he doesn't need to be muted now. Well, unless you
Nah.
request it.
I can say most people probably prefer that option. Yep.
We'll see. Well, it depends what choices you pick. But hey, thanks everybody for joining us, whether you're in the UK or by surprise if you're from anywhere else in the world. Mark's got other stuff to do this afternoon, hence we're doing it at 1 o'clock, and that means no cider for me, and it means it's daytime here, and probably is still bedtime or dawn or something for most of the states, I would imagine. Although we do have someone from Boston, so what do I know? Maybe you're early risers. We'll see. Yep, by the sound of it from James, the audio and the video is fine, and I'm hoping that's going to be the case because, well, I mean, the audio hasn't changed, there's no difference there. But also, I've taken the plunge and upgraded the StreamYard plan. I wasn't certain if I was going to do it before, but I have now, and now we're on the Pro plan. It costs a bit extra, but thanks to the Patreons making that possible. So, you know, without you people, without you guys and girls, I wouldn't be able to do it. But now all my streams will be in HD. So this is now 1080p, and it will be like that going forward as long as the Patreon holds, and hopefully that just means I'll do more live streams in general, because obviously might as well make the use of it while it's there. But yeah, this is a follow-up list, so if you are aware or doing this from before, you know, we'll come back to obviously what Mark does, but you would have seen us already do our top 10 solo games, and you know, thanks to everybody who has been doing well with that. I'm trying to see if it won't show all the things. If I enlarge the screen, maybe it will show it. Yeah, I want to see, like, show off the view count. So 9,000 views that thing's had, 315 likes, 8 people who don't know what good videos are, and that's right. There's one person who I swear dislikes the video as soon as it comes out. It's a bot or a troll. It's like, yeah.
I get exactly the same on mine. Literally within seconds of them going up, so there's always a dislike there, basically.
Yeah. But yeah, very popular video, lots of comments, and that one was essentially a video we did where we went over our top 10 solo games in general. And so that was taken into account every genre. But you would have noticed that most of those would have been story-driven, thematic, Amerithrashy style games, with the odd Euro thrown in. So people, by popular demand, when I said at the end of the video, okay, why don't we just split it up into Euros then? Because I reckon that would be a very different list all round. Well, everybody said yay, so why not? We figured a month later, let's do it. And so you might get a bit of minor overlap, although off the top of my head, I think there's only 2, maximum 3, that might have crossed over from that list. The rest of them will be completely different. I'm expecting Mark's to be completely different, because I don't think many of yours were Euros at all on the previous list.
I don't know. There were some in there. There is a bit of crossover, definitely, yeah. But I think I've had to approach this in a slightly different way because, you know, Euros. I think liking a Euro can depend on how you feel when you're playing it. And, you know, there's certain times when I want to play a particular type of Euro and other times when I want to play another type of Euro. So I've had to come up with a list of Euros that have kind of influenced me the most, or I think I get the most enjoyment from. But if you ask me tomorrow, the list and the order of the list will probably change as well.
Now that kind of makes sense. I was trying to debate on a couple of games, like, are these Euros? It's like, yeah, I had to put up Facebook threads asking, it's like, is this a Euro? Because there was a couple of dubious ones, but fair enough, we've debated those. I was tempted to try and really constrain the definition of Euro, like to make it like, all right, this has got to be like beige victory point type Euros. And it's like, in a couple of cases, I would have felt bad that they would have not met that criteria. So it's like, if I figure it's a Euro game, it counts.
I'd kind of use the criteria that it's either action selection or worker placement, basically, and that's it. That's kind of how it's defined for me. Now, whether it has other mechanisms in there is a different thing, but I think the core mechanism for me is either action selection or worker placement.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not even that. There are some. I mean, a Euro game can also be a case of like how much luck is involved. You know, it doesn't even have to be VP. Doesn't have to be the goal. It doesn't even have to be fully competitive. It could be cooperative. It's just more of a case of, you know, is there a lot of luck involved? Am I chucking dice? Is it story driven? You know, Euro games generally aren't that, and that's kind of where I've gone with the definition per se. But before we crack on with that, obviously, you know, hashtag support small creators. Most of you watching probably already know what Mark does, especially if you're into solo games. But just in case, why don't you remind them?
So for the last kind of 2.5 years, I've been running Not Board Gaming, which is a purely solo and soloable focused YouTube channel. I do reviews, I do previews, interviews, unboxings, etc. But the key focus of the game is everything on the channel is from a solo perspective. I am I would say 95% of the time I'm a solo player. I do play the odd games with my wife and some friends, but generally it's all solo. So I definitely have a solo slant, and I think that's interesting. When we come to Euros as well, is because of course Euros generally aren't built from the ground up as a solo experience. But it's been great to see over the last kind of 2 or 3 years that move towards incorporating the solo community into Euros.
Yeah, which is plenty of there. Definitely give this one a watch as well. These, I mean, if nothing else, just give it a watch for that thumbnail. That thumbnail's amazing.
That was great fun to do with Matt from One Stop Current Shop and Will from Hungry Gamer. That was a lot of fun to do that video.
just the three idiots with those facial expressions is like just perfect. I mean, those two look. I mean, to be fair, they didn't have to do much acting to get those expressions. I mean, they're kind of natural, but. Absolute madness. But we'll switch to Board Game Geek because we're obviously going to need it for its database front. But oh well, that's what are you here for? You're here to hear us talk about games. So let's get a move on. Lead the way.
Leading the way. And at number 10, I've got a feeling this game will not feature on your list in any way, shape, or form. It is a relatively new addition for me. I got it about 4 weeks ago, and I played it a lot of times since then. And I'm talking Great Western Trail 2nd Edition.
You don't know it won't be on my list.
I just got a feeling it won't be. Great Western Trail 2nd Edition. Now, the 2nd Edition has the solo variant in there. I think it was a fan-made solo variant. I believe it was called Garth from the first Great Western Trail. And I'm a little bit hit and miss with Alexander Pfister games. I picked up Boone Lake at Essen, and that's got, for me, a pretty disappointing solo experience in there. I recently picked up Blackout Hong Kong, and I enjoyed that. And Maracaibo, I think, is a great game, but thematically, I have issues with some of the stuff that's represented in there. However, Great Western Trail, I decided to take a punt on this because everybody says it's a great game. And I'm having a lot of fun with Great Western Trail. It is a 2nd edition. It does have the solo in there. And the solo, the ultimate, is very, very smooth to operate. It's literally a deck of cards, and you're moving the AI's cowboy around the board. He's increasing his victory points and blocking place on the railroad track. And you're obviously going out there to either build stuff or herd cows and sell cows, etc. I would say it's a mid-weight Euro game. I think, for me, and bear in mind, I play a lot of Euro games. I find it as a great entry into midweight Euros, but I know some people think it's a little bit more heavy than midweight.
I'm kind of on that front as well. I don't know if it's in that borderline, but I just think that as much crap as I give the game or something, it's like there's enough to think about that you can't just waltz into this and autopilot it as a new player. So I would have called it heavy myself.
Yeah, and I absolutely get that. I think that definition comes out of how you respond to Euro games. If you play a lot of Euro games, and if you played Pfister games before, you'll understand how the mechanisms work in Great Western Trail, and therefore it makes it a little bit easier to do. But the whole thing about the kind of recruiting of the various people you can recruit, the engineers, the builders, or the cowboys, etc. I really like that timing mechanism on there, as it drives a timer on the game, and you're balancing as to whether to kind of rush through the map to get to Kansas City, or whether you want to put stops on there and build buildings on there to create more stops to try and slow down the AI player. As I say, the AI is a singular deck of cards. You can add cards for increased difficulty into that, and you can also increase difficulty or decrease the difficulty in the game. I'm enjoying this a lot more than I thought I would. For me, a relatively new edition, but at number 10 is Great Western Trail's 2nd edition.
Thank you, OneGov, for the. I need to work out exactly how the whole monetary sort of super chat thing works on here, because I must admit I'm a bit of a noob with it. But thank you very much for that, and hello from Tucson AZ. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad that the time of this stream hasn't got in the way of that. There's not much I can say on it. Everybody knows I hate this game with a passion, so I have no idea how the solo mode works. I mean, did you ever play the 1st edition?
Never, ever, no.
So you can't compare the two. I mean, friends of mine who are fans of the first, I mean, they like this next edition for the rules tweaks, but not so much for its graphic design, I've heard. I've heard there's been some issues with, like, things are a bit harder to follow than they should be. And I know that Eggert Spiel, who I think did this reprint, do have a bit of a history with weird graphic design choices.
So yeah, I think you're right. I think on the map itself, the actual track that you got to follow, the path that you got to follow, can be a little bit hard to follow. But because I'm coming to this completely new, it made sense to me. Now, I think if I was coming from first edition to this, then maybe I would have more of a say on that. But I also think one of the things they did as well is I believe there were Native Americans in the first edition, and they acted as a blocking mechanism, and they had no real benefit for the game, I don't think. Now, in the second edition, they've taken the Native Americans out and put outlaws in there, which obviously, that feels better for me rather than just saying, oh, here's some Native Americans, they do bad things. It's the outlaws now. Unfortunately, what that also means is there's no Native American representation in the game in either a good or a bad way now. So I think by solving the problem,
I'd say probably good. I think you would struggle to get it represented well, and I wouldn't put Eggert Spiel at the top front for like doing the best representation it could. If you gave this to Academy Games, maybe, Freedom, the Underground Railroad, case in point. But I figured like it's safer just to take them out and find a new way to represent them, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember that they didn't really do a lot for those ones. Oh, Christoph, don't worry. We figured a lot of people have to work, but, you can always check this out later, so that's fine. All right, my number 10 is really new, actually, and this is on... It's very close to the multiplayer game in a sense, but it's one of those ones that's just super quick. 30 minutes I can get this game out. That looks beautiful, is dirt simple, and I've had good success with the family and teaching events to do that. And Cascadia has won me over as a very good little solo mode present in it. So as a multiplayer, it's already a nice, beautiful game of trying to score with these cards and lay out your track. The solo mode is straightforward. You just basically have the display as normal. Occasionally, when you take a turn, it scraps a column by itself. But you've got these little scenarios in the back of the book which give you different setups for the cards, different victory point counter to achieve, and occasional other restrictions. So as well as what the cards score for, it might say that you can't put a bear next to an elk ever. But you must keep them apart. And there's like good 25 scenarios in the back of the book. They progress in levels of difficulty, and it's just one of those things where I thought, right, how quickly can I get this game out? And by the time you've set it up, you're done with the game in 20, 30 minutes, depending on how much you want to think about it. And it's just nice to have a solo game that is that quick. That fast, just to get on with it. Just give me a nice, pleasant solo experience with minimal setup, no checking the rule book, and looks nice.
Yeah, it's I've got Cascadia. I work away frequently, so it's one of the games that goes in my bag when I work away because it's relatively small footprint and and I can just set it up on a hotel table. It's very abstracted, of course. It's not necessarily my favorite game, but as you say, for a 20 or 30 minute experience, you sort your tiles out and you set it up, and it feels like a nice game to play, a nice puzzle. I've never played it with anybody else, but as a solo game, I think it plays pretty slick and pretty well. I believe there's another fan-made solo variant by Mark Outen on BGG as well, which I think adds some more depth to the solo game. So that's probably worth checking out.
All right, I might have to look at that one. James's comment is like, is Calico's better in it, Luke? It's like, look, Calico's fine, but Cascadia killed Calico. Just check out my top 10 list to find out more why on that one. But this is the one that sort of won me over on it. And although, to be honest, Calico, I'd rather play that solo than multiplayer as well. So but I mean, this one's fine multiplayer, but apart from maybe in a 2-player, you can kind of hate draft a little bit, or it's easier to focus on one person's terrain to say, okay, you're going to beat me on water. Trying to do that with 3 or 4 players is just a bit more brain burny, and they don't add that much to the game for the extra time length. But the game is relatively quick, even with 4, as long as you don't get slow players. It's just having to go, right, you're beating me on water and meadow, you're desert, you've got the water and mountain. It's like I'm trying to focus on 3 boards rather than 1. It's just playing it with 2 is great, 3's fine, 4, like I said, it's short enough that I don't mind it too much. But I just rather, being able to just go, whoop, box done, solo 30 minutes done. Right, what am I doing the rest of the day? It's like
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's an easy game to learn as well. I think that's the beauty of it.
Yes, and that's going to be an interesting thing that crops up a lot when we go through this top 10. You'll see you'll see why as we go along. All right, moving on. Gotta remember to get these timestamps down. Right.
Okay, at number 9 is an Essen purchase for me. I've already mentioned Boon Lake, which I purchased at Essen, which didn't hit the mark from a solo perspective for me. This was a bit of a surprise. This had a queue of people, so I queued for about 15 minutes to get this. And it's Gollum. It's Gollum.
Okay.
Yeah, which I think... first of all, thematically, the theme almost doesn't matter on Gollum. It is a pure point salad of a game. It is a pure point salad of a game, but I love it for that. I think, moving your, I can't remember what they're called, your not acolytes, but your people, your students, whatever they are, up the board, and the way that you pull the marbles out of the marble dispenser, which dictates the actions that you take as well. Building your golems and sacrificing your golems to get additional stuff. There's lots going on in Gollum, and the solo game plays very, very well. I think, and I was speaking to David Digby, who helped write the solo rules. Yeah,
you've made his day, I think.
Yeah. So David helped write the solo rules for this, and if you are getting it as a solo game, you're probably best off learning the game two-handed solo to start off with, so you understand the mechanism.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Because once you've got that down, the solo game will make sense. Now, normally I like to go straight into learning a solo game, but on Gollum, I decided I would learn it two-handed first, and I'm really glad that I did that. Pure point salad. You have these wonderful tracks that you can move up and down on the tracks, and you're trying to get the right coloured marbles that come out of the marble dispenser to allow you to do actions and move your workers up and down on the tracks. And say building your golems and upgrading your golems over time. It's just it feels, whilst not a fresh game, there's nothing new or unique about this. I suppose there's a marble mechanism, but
they're making that their kind of shtick now. I think this is the third game they've done now that uses a marble mechanic in some way. So
yeah. And that marble thing, that marble tower, once it's erected, you don't really want to take it down. So storage can be a bit of an issue there, because if you're putting that together and taking it down, it's going to degrade over time. Nothing massively fresh on this. All the mechanisms just mesh together really, really well. I think the game, you can play a solo game in round about 80 minutes, something like that. Maybe a little bit less or a little bit more, depending on how you fare with your decision trees and your decision spaces.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like it. It just clicks for me. It's a game when I know I've got a couple of hours, I can set it up, I can have a great time playing it. Provides me with a good meaty challenge, and there are variants in terms of how difficult you make it as well.
Yeah, this one's not on my 10, but it probably would be in my teens. I did enjoy the solo mode. It took me a while to get over some of the rules to it. The artifact rules were a little bit fiddly with it, but the rest of it was relatively fine to get into. But yeah, definitely play it multiplayer first. Do not learn this game by solo mode, because again, it's like, all right, so how does this change with the solo mode compared to multiplayer? It's an extra chunk of rules, and 90 minutes when you know what you're doing, probably 2 hours when you're actually learning it for the first time. It's definitely going to be a meaty grind. But now I've been enjoying this one a lot more than I thought I would, especially given the past history of what these designers have made have not gone very well for me. This one's like, oh, sweet, I'll take this one then, thank you. But yeah, multiplayer or solo, I'm definitely into it. And Paul's popping in to say hi, because I'm sure he's got lots of other things to do.
Yeah, the busiest man in board gaming, yeah.
I was going to say, the day when he can survive a 2-hour stream that I do with nothing else to do or something, I'd have to ask the question, okay, seriously, what went wrong? Yeah, what's gone wrong in his plans? But it's going to be... You mentioned David Digby's name. I'm curious as to how many of our games are going to gel with what Paul thinks, just out of interest. But also, David Digby did sort of message me on Facebook, say oh, should I be worried? What's because he has a fun little rivalry with Dave Turksey. Because both of them are kind of the two big names for solo mode. So it's have I got more on your list, or has Turksey pipped me or something? It's I'll be interested to see how many. Although it's hard to tell with David, actually, because Turksey's name's usually on the front of the box all the time with solo modes. It's solo mode by Turksey, but you don't see solo mode by Digby.
No, but we will do because David Digby's solo modes are obviously increasing in popularity all the time. And I've got one that didn't make the list, and purely the only reason it didn't make the list, I've got the prototype copy, and it's a fantastic solo mode, and that's for Distilled. But the fact it hasn't come out to backers yet, because it doesn't come out till late this year, it's not made the list. Had it been an official release, Distilled would definitely be on my top 10 list because David Digby made a fantastic solo mode, which totally makes sense and absolutely kind of nails a solo challenge there.
I'm looking forward to seeing how that pans out. I mean, I didn't back it, and I'm slightly wishing I had, but maybe I think it was a bit pricey for what it felt like. But I'm definitely interested to try it out when it comes out.
Yeah,
and certainly if it has got a solo mode, then even the better. But it's just that for all I know, some of my games actually are David Digby's rules, and I don't actually know because the only way you find out is you have to go to the credits at the back of the book and see in there who actually made it.
Yeah,
whereas. With the Turksy, it's like it's on the forefront of the box. But we'll see how that pans out. All right, my 9. This is, again, another recent one because I've seen the light a bit with this game. Because previously when I played it, it was mostly 3 and 4 player. And 4 player, I'm not a fan of this one because it goes on too long and I think it's a bit too chaotic. Playing it 3 player, though, with the reprint has been pretty good fun. 2 player, it's great. Solo is actually pretty good fun. And I've warmed up now and seen the light for Glass Road. Glass Road's solo mode in here, I mean, the game itself is already good fun. I like a lot of Uri Rosenberg's stuff. And Glass Road's one of his simpler style of like farming games. Funny enough, what do you have to do? In fact, the only difference between this and most of his other farming games is that you don't have to feed your people, which is a nice change. But you've got this really cool little mechanism with the 2 wheels where your resources are tracked on there, but as soon as certain spaces on it are empty, the ones with the brown mark on them, it automatically turns and creates glass and brick, whether you want them to or not. So this is not Cult of the New, Paul. I'm sorry. This game came out in 2013. It's literally just a reprint. All right, that does not count as Cult of the New. Although we'll get to Cult of the New a bit later, I think. But I like these wheels. It's simple. Get some buildings. They score or give you production, and you have your own little player board with lakes and stuff while selecting the cards. Now, with solo mode, in the multiplayer, you normally pick 5 of these 15 characters for the round and see whether you gel with other players. You're hoping to kind of match them now and again and not on others. It's quite a cool little system, but a bit too chaotic in 4 player, I think. In solo, what happens is literally it's just get as many points as you can. I think there's like a minimum target, but you choose your characters, you shuffle them together in a little deck, and depending on what order they come out, one of them gets no actions, 3 of them get a single action, and one of them will get both. Okay. So you're going to get so many actions, but you don't know which cards are going to give you one or none or both. Yeah. So there's a bit of randomness to it. You have to kind of adapt. But it's cool because it's like, right, I know I'm going to get these 5 characters, but how much do I really need a character to get 2 or at least have an action? And you just basically play it through that. And I think you play through something like 7 rounds, and there's different numbers of characters you shuffle in, or like different. I forget the exact mechanism of it, but it's just quite simple. It's mainly just a case of choosing your characters and creating a little randomizer deck for them each round, and doing what you do in the multiplayer game. And as that, it is a nice kind of relaxing type Euro farming one. Okay. A lot of people do mention Newsfield, and I got to admit, I'm one of these minority people that really, I don't dislike it. I just found it meh.
Okay. I've not played Newsford, so I have no horse in this race.
Yeah. When I say like this feels like just another Euro, Newsford to me just feels like just another Uwe. It's like this a bit like Halato. It's like both of them just feel like you're rinse and repeating the same shtick. There's nothing innovative here. Why am I so hard up on this one? And it dared to throw in shares. Don't throw shares into your games, Uwe Rosenberg. It doesn't sit well with me, all right? So I don't want share certificates in your games. You're about farming, stick with farming. I don't want to buy shares in a farming or fishing company or whatever that is. That's not there. There are other Euros that are better for that, and I just generally won't play them. So we'll see.
I've not played Glass Road. In fact, the only Uwe Rosenberg game I played is A Feast for Odin. It's not made my top 10 list. It will probably be 11 or 12 on the list, to tell you the truth, Feast for Odin. I've got the Norwegians expansion still unopened as well, which I need to add to it the next time I play it. I know. I just need to find more time to play it. I enjoy Feast for Odin, and it makes me think I would enjoy more Uwe Rosenberg games. I just haven't had the inclination to buy them yet. I'm not saying I won't do. But yeah, I've not played Glass Road. Based on your recommendation, it might be something that I seek out.
It'd be good to play a 2-player game with you at a conventional side, because it is a nice one. And it doesn't take too long with 2. You can play in about 60 minutes or so.
Okay, cool.
We'll see whether Feast of Odin's on this list. We'll probably, and if it is, then great. If it's not, I'll explain. But the interesting thing with this is Paul mentions a house rule for Newsfjord. I'm curious what that house rule is. I've never played it solo, but I'm curious what you've done in it in order to supposedly make it better. Well, moving on to 8.
All right, so at number 8 is another game that I know will be nowhere near your list whatsoever, based on our previous discussions and the fact you've never.
Don't think you know me. Don't think that you had me pegged.
I will guarantee on this the fact you've never played it solo as well. Also, now as most people know, I love Vital Lacerda games, and I could have almost filled this entire list with Vital Lacerda games. So I've had to be a little bit restricted in what I've done on my Vital Lacerda games here. Now, this for me is a Vital Lacerda game where the solo makes thematic sense in this game more than it does in the multiplayer. And I'm talking Escape Plan here. I love the solo mode of Escape Plan by Vital Lacerda. I think it is thematically on point. It feels absolutely correct that you are a lone person trying to escape a city. Rather than competing with your other bad guys to get out of the city, it feels more thematically correct that you are that one person trying to escape the city, trying to avoid the cookie cop, trying to avoid Sandra, trying to avoid the other cops and the feds, etc. Moving all over the city, catching speedboats and trains and helicopters, trying to go around all the safe houses to collect your stuff. It's not everybody's favorite. In fact, it's probably most people's least favorite Vital Lacerda game, but I love it from a solo experience. It's not necessarily a quick game to play. Again, probably about a 90-minute game if I'm playing Escape Plan. But as you're going throughout the city and you're avoiding these cops and you're building up your repertoire of cards that you've got on that you can use and your abilities that you can use, and you're trying to get as much money as possible. I just enjoy the experience. I know, Luke, Escape Plan, you've only played multiplayer and it really wasn't for you. But for me, as a solo game, it just thematically absolutely hits the nail on the head for me.
It probably will work better solo, because I just did not see a point playing it multiplayer. I thought all those extra players just added to the time length, and yeah, I felt had no bearing really on what I was doing. I feel like solo it could work better, but yeah, I bounced off hard when I think I played a 5-player under like Paul's tuition at HandyCon or something. It's like I know it's a 5-player, and I'm just like, so I know I've only got so many actions this round, but because you've done this, you get more. It's like, oh well, I guess I'll wait here for my time to go to the casino and put a cube down. It's like, and I just can't get over the aesthetics. I do not like this look for the game. It's he's a talent. Ian O'Toole's a talented guy, but I just feel like he was on break on this one.
I know, and I really like how this look. Again, it's just the whole experience, the whole ceremony, if you like, of putting the game out and laying it out, and then having a look at how the map is evolving over the board as you're pulling those tiles off on the various rounds to put them on the board, and then orienting them to try and create your pathways so you can maximize your moves. Yeah, I absolutely get it. It's not a game for everybody, and I would say it's one of the biggest kind of Marmite games out there in terms of Vital Lacerda games. I think people like it or don't like this game. I think that's it.
Yeah, certainly with this one, I think more than the others, I tend to see that. I mean, there's plenty enough fans for it, but I would probably be on the side that says, yeah, I'm sure I'd probably like it a bit more solo, because I just didn't see the multiplayer reasoning for it. You know, if it's just a case of, right, let me build my own map and then make my own little plan to get out of the thing, that probably works. You got your dog, have you?
I have,
It'll be fine. It can just be background noise. It's not a problem. But yeah, so... Or maybe the dog's agreeing with me or you, I'm not sure.
I think my daughter's lunch delivery's arrived. That's what it is. So, yeah.
So anybody who speaks dog, I mean, we can translate, but... Okay, right, fair enough. Although that won't be... I bet that's not the only Lacerda we're going to see on this list for you. I'd be surprised if that's the only Lacerda. Okay, so number 8, solo card game now, and this is definitely not a, like, Cult of the New been sort of singing the praises of this one for, well, at least since it came out 2019. I mentioned on the recent top 10 that this has probably killed a predecessor to it now, in the point where I probably should get rid of the previous one out of my collection, because honestly, I'd rather play Portal's Empires in the North rather than their Imperial Settlers now and 51st State. This is the one that does it for me. With this one, it's just that simplicity of I don't need to deck build, I have my own deck. Just give me a deck of cards for my faction, of which I've now got all of them, which is like countless amount of factions in there. And just being able to go, right, I've got 4 rounds, I've got to get, I think it's like so many points, or you've got to, beat a target for the scenario, which will have not only a victory point limit, but also maybe like an extra loss condition that you got to avoid.
Okay.
And some have been released on the internet by Ignasti, so there's plenty of variety in it. But it's the most sort of streamlined of all these ones. Like, you've got the solo booklet with the scenarios in it. We're going to get an expansion this year that I mentioned on the previous top 10, Wrath of the Lighthouse, which is going to give us like a whole book of solo scenarios that can be done in campaign or standalone, which will be really good. Most of these pictures are kind of just showing off bits on that. I'd like to show more of the actual game if possible. Is that good? Something? Best I can do. But yeah, just, I've got my island board. You've got this little action wheel. You can plonk down a couple of action discs on there to do things like gather resources and that. But when in the solo mode, when the round's done, you flip over the tile and it's not as good as it was before. So It encourages you to diversify your actions each round, or just accept that your action's not going to be this good. And then the 2 that you use in the next round, well, the ones that your disc remain on, to be more accurate, because you can shift them around with food. Flip over then. So it's a case of, right, well, this round I want that to flip, this I want this to flip, but all the while I get to just play a nice simple card game with my faction and go, right, play style is this, well, that island looks good, we can get a couple of fishies, play this card. It's pretty quick, pretty smooth. The solo rules are not very different from the multiplayer, which is, like I say, another recurring theme on this list that you want it. Masiona mentions that it's like a little easy to win. Probably is a little easy. There's a couple of scenarios that are a bit more tricky, but most of them you should win more often than not. But then if that's the case, just up the VP time counter. Because that's typically it. It's usually a case that you've got to avoid a loss condition and meet a certain amount of VP. Well, if that's the problem, just up the target. You can tailor the difficulty to your heart's content. But it's just easier to get out than Imperial Settlers. Much more interesting like theme than, say, 51st State. I mean, I know this big master set is coming out for it now. I mean, I would play it, and I still like the game. 51st State is fine, but it's a bit like Imperial Settlers. It's like, this is a good game. This one beats it out for me.
Okay. I've never played this. Don't know much about it at all. Who did the solo mode for this? Was it Turksy who did the solo mode for this?
No. I suspect it was Ignasi himself.
Yeah. Okay,
I think it's in-house. I don't think anybody specific does the solo modes for Portal.
Yeah. No, I know nothing about this. It looks interesting. I'll probably go and seek this one out at some point. Definitely.
It's definitely, I think, better for solo than it is multiplayer. You can play it with 2, fine, but 3 and 4, again, doesn't add enough interaction with the players to warrant the extra. I mean, this is like a full 3 or 4 player game in operation. It becomes a bit of a mess with all the cards, and I'm not really interacting with these 2 players much unless you're playing a couple of certain factions, and even then it's only light. So I find that solo and 2-player is probably the better way to go with this. And like I say, you can expand it to your heart's content. Some people, as I say, Leslie is keeping Imperial Settlers. I usually play 2 players, not tried it. As I say, pick your poison, really, whichever one you prefer. I mean, I feel sad to possibly get rid of Imperial Settlers because I've got everything for it, but I only really want one or two, one or the other, really. I can't see why you would own both.
Both of them, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it definitely is. And there we go, yeah. I played the score as written as easy mode, plus 10 is normal, plus 20 is hard mode. There you go. Just follow Suzanne's thing, and you've got essentially a situation that will work for everybody. All right, 7s.
So number 7 for me, I suppose, is the granddaddy of space-based Euros, and I think that if you're looking at Euros as a genre, then this will probably feature in your collection. I'm talking Gaia Project.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Zaire at first or something. I thought, wait a minute, that's not a Euro.
It's not Euro. No. I love Zaire, but it's not a Euro. So yeah, Gaia Project. I think It's a game that I think shines because of its variability. As in Gaia Project, you have all those various factions. So if you think you're kind of succeeding too much with one particular faction, you can jump into another faction and make it harder. You got the Automa bot for it, or the Automa factory for it, which works really, 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 really well. It's just one of those games that's a pleasure to play. It takes a bit of time to play and a bit of time to learn the rules as well. It's not necessarily a straightforward game to play. I'd never played Terra Mystica before this, so Terra Mystica doesn't have a solo mode. I know this is a variant on Terra Mystica, and it's great as you start to expand across the board and you start to use, get access to the different planets, and you're moving out along these tiles that you put on the board, and you're increasing your buildings to increase the capabilities that you get in your production phase. You got the terraforming option that you get with the Gaia planets, etc., where you have to do something a little bit special. You got those cubes that you move from one place to another, which power up your abilities as well, and the various tiles you can pull from the tech trees, and you're racing up those tech trees. It provides a really nice, good challenge, and I think it deserves a place in a lot of people's collections, because once you get to grips with how it plays, it's a really, really good and challenging game to play. I can not play it for 6 months, go back to it, and just have a minor skip through the rules and remember most of what I've got to do. Yeah,
really? I didn't find that when I used to own this game. I eventually got bored of it and sold it on. But oh, God, blimey, I would not remember the rules each time I came back to it. It's like, because nothing's intuitive. You've got to know these rules.
Yeah, but you do. But I think it is intuitive once you start looking at how you progress and how you kind of move your resources up and you get your tech tree abilities, etc. If you remember the basics of that, then the quick skim through the rule book within a couple of rounds of going back to the game after 6 months away, you can probably remember exactly how to play it. But it's a good, crunchy challenge, Gaia Project, and that's why it's on my list at number 7.
I think, we would have had riots if somebody didn't put this on their list, not on mine, as I say. I played Terra Mystica for a while, liked it, got bored with it, then I tried this one. I do think Gaia Project is better, mainly because this tech tree is much more interesting than the cult tracks on the previous one. But again, I sort of just got bored with it, and I never wanted to pull it off the shelf compared to a lot of other heavy Euros I had, so it just eventually sort of met the cull for that. And I think most people are on the wheelhouse that this one basically kills Terra Mystica, because people asked about it on the last top 10 I did. It's like, don't you agree that this kills this? And it's like, I do agree, but I'm basically comparing a mech game with a mech game. And it's like, it's not going to make my 10. But yeah, I'd wholeheartedly agree that if you gave me the two and said, which one are we going to play? I'd say, oh yeah, play Gaia Project any day. It just... The rules overhead was a little bit much. All these different factions have all got all sorts of different little tweaks. And when I say like not the most intuitive rules, most of it is to do with how you move on this map. Every single time I forget how that works, like distance or the terraforming the planet or how this cube little network works or something. It's like somebody's got to teach me that every single time I play it.
That makes sense. Like any good crunchy Euro, then there is a rules overhead, and it's always going to be there. And certainly as we come to one of the ones on my list, a little bit further down the list, which I love, the rules overhead can be really prohibitive in trying to get it back to the table, which then creates this self-fulfilling prophecy that you're leaving it longer to get back to the table and forgetting even more of the rules. And that can be a little bit of the same with Gaia Project, but once you've mastered it and you can get it out and maybe play it in relatively quick succession 2 or 3 times over a couple of weeks, then you're going to have a great time with it.
Yeah, I mentioned that on the podcast a while back, saying it was a Patreon question where somebody asked, how much effort do you want to put into a heavy solo mode? And the rules overhead's a big deal or something. If you basically ask me, right, did you have fun learning our 20-page rulebook for the multiplayer mode? Right, well, there's another 10-page rulebook for the solo mode add-on. Gone, don't care. With very few exceptions do I care about that, because it's like I've got no interest in doubling the rules intake just so I can play it solo. It's like there must have been a simpler way, or clearly the game probably wasn't meant to be played solo. Not every game needs a solo mode as much as we both love it. I'm sure we could reduce the number of solo modes we get in games, and Mark wouldn't be out of a job. It would totally be fine. So. Not too bad. Right, mine is probably another classic example of that. Actually, there's no much in the way of extra rules overhead. There's practically none. And it's one of those where normally I'm not the biggest fan where it's just beat your victory point score, unless there's some other condition to make, like something that says you pass or fail. This one has that as part of it. Yes, you do have to get a certain minimum victory point score, but there's also some goals to match. And the Game of Life, the Euro version, Pursuit of Happiness, I do really like playing this one as a solo one. And I'm going to have to share the screen properly again because I've gone, come on, there we go. Whoop, there we go. Right. Hopefully it doesn't have the Windows banners at the top now, so it's a bit of a bigger screen for people to see. But yeah, Pursuit of Happiness, I still love this game. I can't wait to get another expansion for it. That just makes me bring it out. But I love teaching this to new players. I love just like role-playing what character I'm making. But the solo mode in this is straightforward. If you don't know the game, it is basically Game of Life Euro Edition. Start your life as a teenager, work your way to old age, deciding what projects I want. Do I want items? Do I want to own a house, a car, dog, llama? Do I want to get a job? Do I want to date Sheila or Gary? You know, which one do I want? It's like there's all sorts of great things with it. Solo mode, this is the perfect picture to illustrate, actually. You normally have life goals that give you more points at the end, like buy the most items, 1 point per item, etc. At the solo game, you deal out 3 of these, and it says have at least 5 items. So you have to get 50 points basic anyway. So you still got to get the points, but you have to meet the goal on all 3 of those cards, and they might not always like gel with each other. Some might sort of contradict. But if one says like you know, finish with a good job, and another one says have a bunch of items, it's like, right, I need to somehow not only get a lot of money, but I need to buy a lot of items. And obviously these items have got to be good. I can't just buy any item for the sake of it. It's got to get me some points. That means I got to do the upkeep. And it just allows, and that's it. That's the extra overhead. The rest of it is essentially choose your actions, choose your cards, and build yourself up your own little life. So I get that theme without a ton of extra overhead. And I just have a blast with this. Now, James makes a good point. There is a lot out for it. And I do have to sort of caveat that. I mean, I would play this base game fine. I own everything there is for it. I wouldn't necessarily play everything there is for it at any one time. No, if I'm playing this multiplayer, if I'm teaching new players, I'll play base game only. You know, it's just too much otherwise. If people are familiar, I'll always throw in community because that's a great expansion. I'll occasionally, if people are really good, and I'm capping it at, say, 2 or 3 players, I'll play with, what's it called, experiences thrown in, but I can take or leave that one. And now I'm like, they kickstarted a big box storage for it, which it badly needs because it's breaking at the seams there. And nostalgia expansion, which sounds pretty good, but I mean, it's getting to that point of being bloated, which is the slight concern. But honestly, I mean, you can chop and change which expansions you want, because you can throw all the cards in. That's not a problem. It's just whether you use a couple of the sideboards. Yeah, that's a weird looking version there, you know. But throw in all the cards because they don't really add that much in the way of extra rules. Okay. You can just explain them when they come up. But you could just say, you know what, we don't need the experiences board, we don't need the dream board or the community board. Let's just play the base game with a bucket load of extra cards. Yeah.
Yeah, I've not played this, and I know you've been glowing about it, so it's kind of been piquing my interest a little bit recently, this one as well. It's possibly something that I will pick up. It's David Cherkop, isn't it, one of the designers? I know he designed Petrichor, and Petrichor's not in my top 10, but again, Petrichor would probably be in my top 20 list because it's a beautiful, relaxing, different feel of a game about obviously about rain and weather, etc. So yeah, this looks quirky and fun, and I do know that they've recently done the big box storage Kickstarter as well. I
think you can late pledge it actually.
Yeah, I may not go that far. I'll probably just go and seek out the base game to start off with and just see if I like the game. But yeah, it looks great. Is it easy to teach other people? I know we're talking about solo Euros here, but it's
no, it is easy. It's basically essentially a worker placement with the hourglasses. The hourglasses are your time, and you get so many around depending on how old you are, but also how much you're doing. So if I take a job and I'm dating in a relationship or have a family, that sucks up my actions for the round because that stuff takes time out of your life. Okay. But most of it all works on a case of let's bring that picture back again, actually. All these cards work in the same sort of format. There's an upkeep on the left in faded. The middle is the cost and the levels, and the right is the bonus. Every card works in that same fashion. Pay the cost, get the bonus. Level it up, pay the cost, get the bonus. All of that applies all the way through, and then there's just a few other little bits on top. So base game alone is a pretty straightforward teach.
Yeah, and I like what you said about it's not just beat your own score. There's additional criteria there as well. That's Very different game. Blackout Hong Kong and the solo campaign for that has a similar thing. You have to get minimum score plus achieve criteria on the emergency plans as well to actually win that particular scenario. And I like that because beat your own score just on its own can get just a little bit deflating by the end of it. Yeah.
The game's got to be really solid for me to care about a VP generation. There will be one example of this later. But also, like, when they say, like, oh, you've got to beat this criteria of VP, that on its own is not as interesting, especially as one example of a game that hasn't made my list is where the VP limit is set so high, it's ridiculously hard. So, yeah, exactly. So I feel like I'm playing this massive solo Euro game heavy and have no chance of winning it. How deflating is that? You know, it's like, come on, you could have made it a little less hard. That's kind of the way I go. But all right, let's move on to, what are we on? Oh, sixes, of course.
Okay, at 6 for me is a game that I think came out beginning of last year, and then middle of last year they had a Kickstarter for an expansion. And the expansion actually improves the solo mode as well. I previewed it on my channel, and that's Excavation Earth from Mighty Boards, a Turksy game, which is a
so we're 1-1 at the moment for you, are we?
Right. It's a market manipulation game. So aliens are coming to Earth. Earth has been whatever, it's been destroyed. Aliens are coming to Earth and they're mining for artifacts or looking for artifacts, and they're sending their explorers out onto the planet to get artifacts, and whatever artifacts are out there and uncovered affect the market, and therefore the market, the prices on artifacts can increase or decrease depending on how many are on the board and what cards come out as well. There's a solo bot called Zoo, ZU, not ZOO. Called Zoo, who again is a number of cards that they play against, and then it's set into 3 tiers, and there's an increasing difficulty on there as they start to potentially, it's quite easy if you don't get to grips with how Zoo plays for Zoo to start stealing a march on you fairly early on. So your first couple of games of Excavation Earth, you're probably going to lose. But once you've got some basic strategies down, you can really start playing around with things. And because you've got this dynamic market that happens and this market manipulation that happens, and the factions you can choose from, you can choose to play variant factions as well. You get the fact that no one strategy is ever going to win every single game for you. So you have to be a little bit creative in your strategies that you employ. It's, for a game, yes, it's multiplayer as well, but for a game that provides a solo experience with market manipulation, it fits a pretty unique niche in the market, I think. And I think what David and I think it's YE designed it as well, along with Gordon Kalea from Mighty Boards. They've created something that absolutely provides a really fun and crunchy experience. The new expansion, the Meet Me at the Museum, I think it's called, that adds further element to it, another element where you're collecting artifacts to put into a museum, but adds some tweaks to the solo mode as well. And I really enjoy everything about this game. It's bright, it's colourful, it's got a different feel about it. Yeah, there we go, it belongs in the museum. It's bright, it's colourful, got a different feel about it, provides a really good challenge. And if you opted for the metal coins as well, they're some of the best metal coins I've seen in any game. So
that makes no difference to solo play.
It doesn't, but aesthetically, I'm going to start using those metal coins to replace the awful ones in Ark Nova.
Oh god, yeah.
Anyway, maybe more on Ark Nova later. So yeah, I really enjoy Excavation Earth. I think on its initial release, it didn't get a massive following, but over the last year or so, it's got more and more, the kind of the love for the game's increased, and certainly with the Kickstarter last year, it's increased even more. And I'd like to see this on more people's table, because I think if you like a good crunchy Euro, which offers variant strategies and it's very good market manipulation mechanism, then you should really punt for Excavation Earth.
Yeah, I need to play it again. I mean, I just updated my rating to bring it down a notch as well, because I thought, like, that's probably a bit, from like above average to meh or whatever. It's I played it pre-Kickstarter and sort of thought, this is all right, but I don't know, I just couldn't get into it. And I think I didn't have a lot of information about what it was beforehand. And I look at that cover and I go, oh, this could be fun. This could be a little quirky game with sci-fi bits and control. And then you mentioned the 2 words, market manipulation. Uh-oh. It's like, there's the two words I never like to hear too often. And it's like, I realize that this is essentially an economic game with a sci-fi theme. And it's like, It's like, not necessarily that's like makes it a bad game, but it's just like, it's not my typical style of game. I'd have to play it again in a full version or something to see.
Yeah.
I mean, I doubt I'll ever play it solo, but I'd sit down and play another 3-player game, 4-player game of it again, just to sort of kind of see. I'm surprised you're not getting shtick from Bull about this being Colton and you. I mean, come on, this was 2021 and only got fulfilled, end of last year or something, didn't it?
No, it got fulfilled in January last year.
It was actually quite early then.
Yeah. So I think it was the first game I received in January 2021.
So at the moment, you are 1-1 for Digby and Turksey. Is that the way I'm seeing it? I should probably actually do a little chart, like DT and DD or something. And so like Mark, Luke, and have I done any? I don't think I've done either yet, have I? I don't think I've done a Digby or a Turksey one yet on my list.
No,
so
there would be more Digby had this still been released. Let's put it that way.
That is true. Like I say, we're not like calling preferences on which one we prefer. I found it just quite amusing that it's like, is there like a little subtle rivalry like in a fun way or something? It's just like, well, I'm just playing up to it. Okie doke. Right. Feel free to do predictions if you want. Right. Okay. Number 6. Yes. One. I had to kind of refine this list this morning, and this was higher, like by a good 3 places before, and then I had to think about the rest, and it's like, maybe these are slightly higher, and I almost feel bad that this one dropped down, because I do think it's such a good, solid solo mode for what is probably on par of being my favourite of all the games that Garphill Games have put out so far, and certainly it's my second... To call it my second favourite of the West Kingdom trilogy seems like a bit of a no-mare, because literally on my top 100, I think they were neck and neck with like Viscounts and Architects. Viscounts is the one that takes the solo spot, though. Architects, I'm much more preferable to play that multiplayer. This solo mode's fine, but they are revamping it in the next expansion, which kind of says it all, really. Architects is much better to play as a 3, 4, 5, even 6-player game. Viscounts, on the other hand, though, whoo-wee! I mean, I'll play it 2, 3, 4-player, but the solo mode in this is solid. It is a really good one, and it's again back to this rules overhead thing. The solo mode in this works very similar to multiplayer in the sense that the player boards are double-sided and you flip them over and it has one of 4 different AIs to follow, and essentially it still plays out the same. You have a small deck of cards for the AI, you flip one over and it goes along the little conveyor belt on your board, much in the same way as multiplayer would, except that their symbology is a little different. Obviously their cards are just free actions. I don't know if I'll be able to find a picture of the solo mode on the list, but you just basically follow the actions, top, middle, bottom, and it tries to do all 3. And then it just has a priority like on the card, not in a rule book somewhere of, right, it first tries to do this, and if it can't, it'll do this next one. But each one has a focus. So one of them tries to do the castle more, one tries to do the manuscripts, one is just about flipping over the deed and deck cards. And so each gives you a nice little challenge, depending on what townsfolk turn up. And it's a smooth operation. I mean, I think you pretty much just have to bear in mind that some symbols that work for multiplayer don't work for solo.
Okay, yeah.
Like, these do this in multiplayer, but in the reference card, it's just all of them mean this for the solo AI, which simplifies it. Fine. But with 3 or 4 player, this one could be... here we go. Actually, perfect. Thank you. These are the solo autumnal boards. So they look the same. They've got some pre-printed bits just to say, here's some icons. They've got their own virtue track, and this just basically means what resources they get in priority, and this is their focus. So this one here is building. So whenever the card has the building icon, also it has this like laurel wreath icon, and it just means do a build. So if you play this AI, it will try to empty out its building row.
Okay.
Which kind of works in that. And yeah, I'd say the game itself is solid, but whereas I would give Architects the slight nudge multiplayer-wise, of which I prefer out of the 2, if I was doing solo, this one hands down. Yeah.
So I think, for me, I've only ever played one of the Architects games. That was with you. One of the West Kingdom games. That was with you at UKGE. And that was
Must be Architects. Yeah, Scott. I was gonna say I taught you and about like 4 others there. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. So I don't own any of these West Kingdom games, and it's something I keep thinking I need to rectify. So I do hear a lot of good things about Viscounts. I'm not too sure about how Architects play solo, and then about how Paladins play solo as well. I think somebody mentioned here that Paladins is solo with added players. I don't know.
Yes.
But yeah, I love the artwork by the Micho, and they look great on the table, and it's something I will rectify. But other than playing Architects with you at UKG, which I enjoyed, it didn't necessarily stand out massively for me, but it was a nice experience, a good experience to play.
There's a recurring theme, you'll know that there's a lot of times I've taught Mark a game, and he's enjoyed them all. So just putting that out there.
I enjoy most games. I played Architects and I enjoyed it. It didn't make me go out and buy it though. But maybe I will at some point go out and get Viscounts of the West Kingdom. I hear a lot of good things about it from solo gamers, and I feel a little bit remiss that I haven't actually tried it as of yet. Is it a Rondell?
This will be an easy. Yeah, this will be an easy one to teach if I bring it to a convention and that. It's essentially a rondel. Your Viscount piece starts on the particular spot, and you follow like the arrows as to which route you can take, and each is a space of movement. So it's like 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
1, 2, 3 around the thing. But when you play a card, your townsfolk card, it's got abilities that key off whether it's on your board, falls off, or comes into play, depending on what it is. But it also has a monetary value, and that dictates the minimum movement you have to move.
Yeah.
So as well as thinking I could do with this townsfolk for the symbols, it's like, it's going to make me move 3. I don't need to move quite that fast. Can I still get to where I want to go? But you can boost it with money. So it's an extra like,
Yeah.
I want this car, but I also want this movement. But yeah, it's just great to have the variety of towns. So I kickstarted the 2 expansions. I mean, that was just a given. It's like, I mean, I would have liked to have seen some pre-Kickstarter stuff to preview, but I'll just back it anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm happy as long as they don't bloat this out too much. I'll certainly take more content and some tweaking of the solo mode like they will. Paladins for me, as someone mentioned, that one I'm okay with, but it's one of those, I should do a top 10 list of reviews I regret in a sense, or like reviews where I might change my opinion or something, because Dune Imperium was a bit like that, where I rated it quite high and then I'm thinking, oh, wait a minute, after a few more plays, it's started to show more of the chinks in the armor, and Paladins was one of them. I like the game fine, but if you think that Viscounts and Architects is relatively dry, even though I'd say Architects' theme is not too bad actually, this one's certainly more drier, then Paladins, as I say, it's just a solo point salad. Like the theme is non-existent in all ways, shapes, or sizes, and there's no point having extra players at all. It's literally just a solo game, like multiplayer solitaire, and it's mostly a case of, take 2 actions, spam them back and forth all the time, put some bits on space. I didn't get enough. At first, I thought, this is quite a cool little system. And it is quite a nice, clever system. But then after more plays following the review, it's like, this is getting a little bit repetitive. I wish I'd changed my mind. So Paladins is definitely the weaker. It's probably my 4th. I've only played 4 of their 6 games they've done, not including Raiders of Scythia and Hadrian's Wall, which I've still not played either. But we'll see on Hadrian's Wall, though. I've got a new sponsorship deal in that might be able to get me more games a month or so to review, and maybe that will be, when that kicks off, maybe that'll be the time to actually get a copy of Hadrian's Wall and see what the hell everyone keeps talking about.
It's a great game. The reason it doesn't feature on my list is, although it's there is an element of resource management, it's predominantly a kind of flip and write game, so that's why it's not really featured on my list. But I love Hadrian's Wall.
Yeah, everyone bangs on about it, and I'm just like, oh god, spreadsheet the game, and roll and writes have just I've played so many of them and tried them. It's like, what's new? But I think people will hate me forever if I don't eventually play it and review it. So it's got to happen at some point when I can afford to get a copy of it. So I feel like I should just do it as a print and play or something. But we'll see in the long run. It will happen. One day it will happen. I will play it.
Okay, halfway through the list now, and we'll see almost a definite change and a shift from my bottom 5 to my top 5 now as we get into...
Good games?
But well, I'm quite surprised there's been no crossover as of yet as well. So that's
that doesn't surprise me, I think, because I was expecting our list to be a fair bit different, because there was a couple... I didn't get a chance to write down which ones I thought would be on your list, but I thought, there was a chance Great Western Trail would appear, and there was no shot that Gaia Project was on there. I was like, that had to be on there. I wasn't expecting Excavation Earth quite so soon.
Okay.
And I think one other you mentioned. What was the other one you mentioned? What was your 9 and 8?
Gollum.
Yeah, I didn't expect Gollum.
yeah.
Because I like that one as well, and I know I can't remember if I taught you it or you learned it yourself or something. But
I taught it myself in the hotel room at Essen.
Yeah. So I couldn't remember. I remember you liking it, but I didn't remember you liked it like that much for the solo, which is cool. I enjoy it. It's still on my shelf. Forget Lorenzo. There is Gollum.
So as we get to number 5, then we spoke about rules overheads, and this game would be higher up on my list if it wasn't for the rules overheads. Now, for the solo game, if you take this game and you throw the expansions in, and you also learn the solo game, I think you're going through 4 or 5 rule books basically. But once you get to grips with it, it is fantastic.
Right.
And it's Trickerion from Mind Clash Games. It's another Turksy influence one. Trickerion is a wonderful game about being a magician and building up your repertoire of tricks to perform on stage. But there are a hell of a lot of rules in this. This is one of the heaviest games that I own. So I got the collector's edition first time I visited Essen in 2019, whenever it was. It would feature higher on my list if I could remember how to play it. Now, I know.
Yes.
I noticed on Facebook, on one of the groups on Facebook, a guy called Jonathan Boble, who I think is getting into rulebook writing, has created a condensed, I think it's like a 10-page or 10 small cards of how to play Trickerion, which would be really good. Yeah. Maybe only covers the base game because then you've got things like Dalgard's Academy and the Dark Alley to add. And the solo rules had a whole new thing. And look at that. The table
look at it all. Great. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
It's an utterly wonderful game with so many moving parts, but it is a beast to relearn.
That's the expansion setup that's the extra academy on the side. It's a mammoth game.
It's a huge game, but it's one of those where you put the effort in first and you reap the rewards afterwards, because playing it is a very, very rich and crunchy experience. It's not going to be for everybody. It's going to be too rules heavy for a lot of people. And hence the reason it doesn't get to my table as much as I'd like to get it to my table. But it is a beautiful, crunchy game. For somebody like me that enjoys reading rule books, then almost, I know.
Strange man.
Then when I get this to the table kind of once every 6 months, I've got that day beforehand where I sit down with the 4 or 5 rule books and I reread them to get to grips with the rules. I'm terrible at it. I can't win the game for the love of the money. I don't care. This is a real kind of journey rather than a destination game for me. I don't know if I would want to play it with other people. That's the thing, because maybe it would, but I do enjoy the solo experience. It does provide a really, really good challenge. But boy, is there a lot going on in this game. It is a beautiful, beautiful game. It's peak Mind Clash, this. And it really hits the mark on so many levels. But those rules overheads are perhaps the largest on any game that I own.
It's a good one. I think it's my second favorite of the 3. I prefer Anachrony to it overall, but that's like I say, I gave it a 9 out of 10. That's not exactly saying much, but it's one that I've only played this multiplayer. And usually, I occasionally with 4, but mainly with the same 2 friends of mine.
Okay.
Like, this is and that is the thing. This is so rules heavy that if it wasn't for the fact that I've got 2 friends who have this game and love it to bits and are willing to go through a bit of that rules overhead with me when we get it back to the table, I probably wouldn't have kept it just because it is such a mammoth set of rules. But yeah, you are right. This game is highly enjoyable. I love playing it with them. It's just, I've never tackled the solo mode because, as you said, how many rule books and how many extra rules? I just thought, no, I just would not have the time or patience to absorb that many rules to get it out solo. I mean, I'm not saying I'd probably enjoy it because I like the game, but man, that effort. I mean, I've probably got to remember a ton of multiplayer rules for it now because it's been a while. So I've got to absorb a bit of that and do the solo and get it out of the box, and that is just... I don't know if this needed a solo mode. It's just that intensive.
It does. It's sharp. The solo mode is excellent. But we spoke about on Gollum, where I learned to play Gollum two-handed and then went into the solo mode. No, when I got this, I didn't just learn the solo mode from the bat. I threw all the expansions in one go as well. I thought, if I'm going in, I'm going in on this. And
did you literally write off the day?
Days. It literally days I wrote off. It's a couple of days reading the rule books, setting it up, playing a little bit, and then resetting the game and going back into it because I got a couple of rules wrong. But I enjoyed that entire experience. Now, I would probably still, it's been 6 months at least since I had it to my table, so it would probably still take me, I don't know, I'd have to relearn about 50% of the rules right now. But it's something I'm willing to do for this game because I enjoy it that much when I play it.
It's maybe one day I'll try and tackle it, but yeah, it's going to be like, I mean, I've had a lot of time off since in between jobs, but I mean, I start the new job in a week, in a week's time. After that, am I going to find a spare day on the weekend where I feel like trying to learn this entire game solo? I don't know, but it's tempting because, to be honest, I need to do the same for Cerebria as well at some point. But again, that has a ton of rules in addition. It's like, come on, yeah. I need an easy implementation, but nah. I mean, the game is solid. It's just scary.
Yeah. Cerebria is, again, a game that didn't make my top 10, but would probably be in my top 20. And I think with Cerebria, it feels more complex than it actually is. I'm not saying it's a straightforward game, Cerebria. There is a complexity to it. Yeah. But once you, again, get a couple of rounds into Cerebria, you can get the flow of it. And I do enjoy Cerebria a hell of a lot.
Fair enough. All right, my 5, we're going to what I said before about, look, this is literally just beat your high score. There's no other win condition. There's nothing else in it. But I thought, hang on, I need to play this again this week just to cement it for the list because I need to see if it's still like that. And it is. So I played it on Tabletop Simulator yesterday as a quickie, and I still hold that this is probably my favourite sandbox Euro in existence. I don't know. Vindication might be a different one, but we'll see. But certainly for farming Euros, yeah, it's Fields of Isle without a shadow of a doubt. This one is literally just beat your score. It claims that there's about 110 points. That's remarkable score. I've yet to ever achieve that in a solo game. But, I'm still getting like 90 plus on a regular basis. But I don't really care about getting a high score. I just love the fact that when I set this game up and it's like, right, where on earth do I start? It's just the ultimate sandbox, all the feed. This is like a 2-player setup. There's your main board. This is just what the opponent has. Everything else you need in the solo mode. And then it's like, right, advance the dike, dehydrate this, get some animals, get farming. I could do 2 types of things. I could go trade with the villages, get some plows, get some carts, upgrade stuff. Oh, there's a bunch of tools here. I could upgrade them. Oh, there's a bunch of buildings to do that. Add tea and trade. Now suddenly I've got boats and exporting and tea to deal with. The amount of stuff in this game variety-wise is off the chain. But that's why I like it, because it is just literally giving me a theme I already adore, which I do like the farming theme in games. I think since Agricola, it's worked for me.
All right.
And this one just allows me to literally do anything I feel like different every game. And the solo rules are literally just play it as multiplayer with 2 exceptions to the rules. And that's it. There's no AI that blocks your spaces. There's no special rule you've got to follow. You play it exactly like multiplayer with the one caveat that normally in a 2-player game or more, you've got 2 sides, this worker placement board here. Spring has you doing the left and winter has you doing the right. In a multiplayer, you're allowed to send 1 worker to the opposite side, but it mucks up the turn order if you do. In a solo mode, you can't do that. So you have to stay in your season the whole time. And believe me, that does make the difficulty a bit harder. Hence, it's a bit harder to get that higher score, because there are times when you really could use an action on the other side, but you've got to wait until you move to the next round before you can do it, because it alternates. Yeah, it's just pure sandboxy fun. Played it yesterday. I had to do a skim through the rules, like you said, but it didn't take me long to get it, because you don't even need to learn every single rule. I decided in the game I'm not going to do boats. I'm not going to do anything to do with boats on that. So I didn't really have to reread the rules for how to do boats. So I just basically ignored it and just went on to other things. It's annoying that there's all this rotten promos and stuff like that. It's like, who cares about that? It's more, big box expansion. You can play it with 3 players. Yeah. And now you've got this little boat board of that. So this is effectively a 1-player setup. Yeah. All this stuff. But it's like, you know what? I'm not doing anything to do with boats. Fine. I don't need to learn it. But next game I play, I might focus entirely on tea and do that. And I just get a kick out of all these choices.
So I think, as I mentioned, I haven't played any other Rosenberg games other than Feast for Odin, but it looks like they follow a very similar theme. And I actually imagine they potentially look a little bit more complex than they actually are as well. I think that's the thing with Feast for Odin is you get all these, you got the board set up and all the tiles set up, but when you get into the kind of nitty gritty of the gameplay, it all starts to flow quite nicely. I do hear lots of good things about Fields of Isle, and it's something that at some point I will probably I will probably get. Not huge on farming themes for me. It doesn't really scratch a particular itch for me. But I know that this game is very, very well received by a lot of people.
It's the fact that, because 2-player it works fine, but the base game only does 1 or 2 players. You have to up it to 3-player with quick start rules in order to do the 3-player option, which still works fine because you've got the quick start rules. It speeds it up and it takes a round off the timer and does a quick start, so it pretty much takes exactly the same amount of time, which is quite cool. But yeah, I mean, if you're not a fan of the theme, I think you'd still get something out of it. But I think because I love the farming theme, and this is not because I'm from Somerset, this just because I'm from Somerset in the West Country does not make me love farming games. But it's just, I think it's just that I don't know, it's one of those real to life, like it's grounded in reality. It's something that I do at least respect. I respect all farmers, and it's one of those simple things of, right, now I haven't got to think, I need to get coal so I can churn it through this process and turn it into this. It's like, no, it's simple. It's like, here's my field, it makes grain. I bake bread out of it. It's just a lot more familiar. Yeah. But with this, if I get a chance, like I mentioned, I might have to bring this along and sort of teach you it as a 2-player so I can see what you think. But sandbox, I like all the choices. Excellent. Don't restrict me like Agricola does. Just let me have some fun with it. All right, 4s, let's move.
Okay, number 4. Now, I'll almost guarantee this will be on your list. Now, in fact, yes, I could state my house escape plan wouldn't be on your list. I will guarantee this will be on your list. And the reason it's number 4 doesn't make it a bad game. In fact, I could have put this anywhere in my top 4.
Ranking this was hard, believe me. I mentioned about Viscounts being at 6. It was red hard. Ranking this anywhere above 7 was tricky. Yeah.
And I think that, this is an absolutely fantastic game. It's a darling at the moment. It's everywhere on social media. And of course, I'm talking about Ark Nova. Ark Nova, the tile laying, tableau building, engine building, zoo building game that is absolutely everywhere.
We're definitely going to get caught. We're definitely going to get caught with the new
on
things for that one. Yeah.
But I do think this is deserved. Now, I've never been a Terraforming Mars fan. I had it and I got rid of it. And I know there are some comparisons between this and Terraforming Mars because there are some similarities. This for me just hits the nail on the head in terms of what it's meant to do. Now, as a solo game, let's talk about the solo game for starters. It's not the multiplayer game. There's no real interaction in this, and it's limited a little bit in the solo experience by the fact that you're not really going to cycle through that massive deck of cards where you will in a multiplayer game more as the break happens and people start taking more cards. So your game plan in solo, your strategy has to be defined a lot earlier on. Your starting cards are very much more important to you as a solo gamer, and having the ability just to have a couple of strategies to start off with and then pick one to go with is really key because you only get 27 moves in a solo game and that's it. You've got this reducing number of moves per round. However, because of how the game comes, you've got the storage tray system. You can set the game up in about 5 minutes. You can play a solo game in about 45 minutes to 60 minutes and put it away, depending on your decision space. 27 moves doesn't take that much time.
I do find myself doing a lot of decision space, but I mean, I think an hour is about right. Yeah, 45 minutes. I'd have to be playing pretty quick to do it in 45 minutes. I think.
Yeah. Well, I've generally lost if I played it in 45 minutes. Yeah, I've picked a strategy.
Think harder. Yeah.
And I love, the various paths to victory on this. Am I going to go for buildings? Am I going to go for kiosks? Am I going to go for trying to hit my conservation objectives? It clicks in so many ways and provides a unique experience every time you play it. You get those asymmetrical maps that you can play with as well, which I think are just absolutely great because your strategy will change depending on which map you play with. You get the variant in in your difficulty of the game as you move your appreciation either up or down. Is it appreciation? That's right. Appeal, that's it. Sorry, yeah. As you move your appeal up or down. And the only downside, as I say, potential downside is the fact that you're never going to cycle through that entire deck of cards, and that can be restrictive in a solo game. So you lack a bit of the interaction there from the multiplayer game. It's not quite the same as the multiplayer game, but if you know how to play a multiplayer game, you'll definitely know how to play it solo. And
it's kind of like it's like 95% the same as multiplayer.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the slight niggle that it does have the cards. The cards don't cycle through. I'm almost tempted whether knowing that you only get rid of 2 cards, I wonder if a house rule to cycle the entire display every time the break happens might change it. I don't know, but then it does mean that you've got to adapt to the cards rather than sort of banking, oh yeah, I'll probably see a lot of birds turn up. Well, if the birds aren't there, I might have to start considering something else. And sometimes you may end up with a situation that just does not gel. Oh, well, fine. Rinse and go again. Have you tried the challenge mode yet?
I've not, no. So this is where the cards you play, is it 3 games, but any cards that have gone through, you don't use them in your subsequent games. Is that right?
Yeah. I tried it, that challenge mode or something, and it does have an influence because suddenly cards that you saw turn up that you think, oh, that will work well with a different set of cards is now gone. So now you've got that. Not to mention it makes the speedy setup because you literally just get rid of the cards and reset.
Yeah.
It's worth trying that one. But yeah, maybe the game's all right. Yo, what?
the game's all right.
You know nothing, Jon Snow. You know nothing. Right, now number 4. This is going to make people do a double take because the name alone doesn't hint that it's a solo game. It's like the name is like, hey, what? No, this can't be done solo. So just a hint, I'll give people a break after I say the name. 7 Wonders Duel. I'm not joking. Yeah, I say the name is a little off-putting. It's like, how the hell is this a solo game? And yeah, it's worthy of the question mark. The reason for this is because you can get an official print and play expansion for this. Asmodee, it's on Asmodee's site. They made a big deal of this, and I went and grabbed it. It's very simple. It's off their main website. You should be able to find it easy enough on search. But all it is basically a tiny little deck of cards with some AI player cards or whatever. I think there's like 20-something cards in total that you print off. And so I printed them off, laminated them, and that's it. That's all the extra components there is, and a tiny little rule set. But what you do is that a bit like, what was the one? Viscounts that I mentioned. You know, the AI has a focus?
Yeah.
Well, it's the same with this. You end up with this tableau, and the AI has maybe a couple of setup tweaks, but it has a focus on it. So it Cleopatra might want the yellow cards, so-and-so might want the blue cards. But they also want the red and green in some respect because they're the auto-win conditions. You flip over a card from a deck, and it basically tells you whether to go left or right on the tableau, and it tells you whether it's red, green, or their focus that they're interested in. If they're not there, you pick a different card, the first one along. So occasionally they will get the other colours. That's it. Okay. There's just a couple of tweaks to the fact that they don't care about money, but they can make life more expensive for you. But it is surprising how challenging that is when they are nicking those cards, because as I say, they're nicking the red and greens as often as a multiplayer person would. And they're the auto-win conditions, so you can't ignore it. It's not like the AI is just blindly going for their focus, and it's like, well, cool, I only have to worry about points. No, you got to worry about points, but there's every chance the AI will auto-win you if you're not careful. It's such an easy solo mode to put in, and it normally sits on my shelf, unable to play it because it's 2-player only.
Right.
Now I can play it. I wish they'd updated it for the Pantheon expansion. That's the only annoyance. You have to do this base game only, but it is just a really solid P&P mode. And I'm not normally a fan of going print and plays because it's like, oh, the effort and that. But I've done it with a couple like Whistle Mountain, which not on my list. The solo mode in that is fine P&P, but just wouldn't be top 10. But it's like, oh, I got to put in this effort. But I thought this is minimal effort, and it's just like I'm never going to play it if often enough if I don't find a way to play it. So that was like the incentive to do it. And yeah, Z's done a solo play of it, so it's worth watching his video. Paul's either trolling or he doesn't know what he's talking about. This is like my top 10 or my top 100. This game is fantastic. I love this game. And the Agora expansion, not the biggest fan. Take it or leave it. Pantheon's better, personally.
Yeah, I think, I've never played any of the 7 Wonders games at all. Obviously, being a solo player.
Any of them? Oh, yeah, true.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And like you said, printing stuff off to have the ability to play a game. My printer is probably from the 90s, basically, so I have a terrible time printing stuff. And because nobody works in an office these days, we're all working from home, I can't even use the office printer because I only go into my office about once every 6 months or so.
Well, update! I've got a laser printer in the other room. Does me a treat. It works great for my LCG dividers, which all the Marvel Champion stuff, incidentally, is actually underneath this tabletop at the
moment. So yeah, maybe it's something I will, because I don't think it's necessarily an expensive game. 7 Wonders Duel, and when I go on holiday with my wife, we enjoy 2-player games, and she really enjoyed.
You
Jaipur.
need this then.
So this sounds like a great game that would fit into that kind of ilk. So maybe I'll pick it up and then try
even without Pantheon, it's still a fantastic game. It's like Pantheon, I think, ups it to the next level of, this is great, because normally you're picking the cards in sequence, so you know that if I take this card, you're going to have to take this one. Pantheon allows you an extra action that can change that order. Yeah, and that can be really cool, as well as like special powers of gods that you spend with money. But you don't need it off the bat. If you can get this game and see if your wife likes it, because it's not a difficult game to pick up. I mean, Tom made me roll my eyes, Vassal, when they did their casual and advanced 2-player games. He put it on the casual list, which I thought was bonkers. This is not a casual game. But then it was like insane that the People's Choice also put it as their casual game. And it's like, okay, this is where gamers are too biased, crazy. It's not like this is an advanced game, but cool, it's not casual. Jaipur is casual. This is not casual.
Yeah.
Absolute mad. But yeah, upgrade your printer.
Well, Lillian has said, see, my workplace will allow it. Maybe I'll try. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter whether they allow it. I use it. Well,
you just gone by one.
Yeah. No, I just used to do it in secret. It's like, oh, you know what? I've just finished for the day. La da da. Just go to get these files, print it on, wait at the printer. It's like, hey, come on. They've got the money to afford printer ink. It's not that thing. So yeah, we agree. It's not a casual game. Absolute nonsense. But yeah, if they made a slight big deal, but mainly on social media. Asmodee website. Look up 7 Wonders Duel. Look up solo rules or something. It's in there and it's an easy PMP file. Definitely worth checking out if you're like, oh, I can't get this game because I'm, all alone, big violin or whatever. That maybe I'll play this on Valentine's Day and just remind me of that. Okay, all right. What that was 4, wasn't it? All right, freeze, tap free.
So we've already mentioned that I could almost fill my entire list with Vital Lacerda games, and I think I've done very well to restrict the number of Vital Lacerda games I've chosen for the list. I chose Escape Plan for a very particular reason, because obviously it shines as a solo game for me. It's not, I'm not saying it's the best Vital Lacerda game out there. I'm saying as a solo experience, it shines. This is my number 3 is, I think, well, it's definitely the best Vital Lacerda solo game. It's another strike for Turksy as well, because of course I'm talking Kanban EV.
I typed out in advance. I thought, this was another one. If this wasn't on your list, I'd have cried foul.
Yeah. So I think that Kanban EV is it's just a fantastic action selection game in the vein of all Vital Lacerdas, but what is the first time that Vital teamed up with David Turksy and they created this wonderful solo mode where you are, and Luke and I discussed this on our top 10 videos anyway, where you are battling against 3 AIs effectively, but it's really 2. You've got Mr. Lacerda, Mr. Turksy, and you've got Sandra kind of doing all the
Sandra
doing all the checking. She gets everywhere. I have no interest in cars. I have one, I drive one. No interest in cars or the manufacturing of cars, but I find this game completely engrossing. They're just great how you're maximizing your research and development to build plans, or maybe you're getting the right parts in to upgrade your cars. You're testing cars on this test track, and all the while you're trying not to get fired. Now, it does ultimately fall into the same trap as all of the solo modes for Vital Lacerda games, where it eventually becomes a beat your own score game. However, this does have a lose mechanism, because it is entirely possible to get fired in this game. And people can get fired at the end of the first week, at the end of the first meeting. It can happen. I can play it now where I don't get fired, so that beat your own score becomes more prevalent for me.
Well, you don't like cars. Frankly, I wouldn't have signed you up for the job in the first place.
It's a glorious, beautiful game to look at. Of course, it is. It's Eagle Griffin. The components are absolutely fantastic. And I went deluxeified. I got the metal cars instead of the wooden cars as well, so I paid the extra for that.
I didn't do that. That was too much money. The wooden ones look better, I think.
No, I blinged it out because I just loved, I just wanted the ultimate experience for this. It is absolutely a fantastic solo mode. I've not played it multiplayer. I've only played it purely solo, and I think it's absolutely great. It is. I'm really looking forward to the solo mode in Weather Machine when that comes next year. I've not played the solo mode. I know it's on BGA, I think, something like that. Played multiplayer Weather Machine at GridCon. Really enjoyed that. I think that'll be in my top 10 next year. The solo mode's good. It's another Turksy Vital Lacerda crossover. But for me, this, as a solo gamer, is the best solo Vital Lacerda experience that there is for you. I say I'm a Beetle Lacerda addict. I've got everything. Somebody's mentioned On Mars. They only played On Mars solo. Wow, that's a crunchy one. That
I got a bunch of them. I got a bunch of the ones on there, and I say Kanban is definitely my favorite Lacerda now. It's overtaking Gallerist for multiplayer purposes. We did agree because we did a list of our favorite. Like we ranked the Lacerda solos last year about March time, and yeah, I agree. This is the best solo mode of it. It doesn't make my top 10, though. The problem is, I love this game to bits. I like cars. I literally, just getting the oil change, today or something. I just my beautiful Bessie, my yellow Suzuki's a sport in that. It's I like cars. So this theme literally just is, grabbing me by the collar and say, you love this game. Yes. And I like playing it multiplayer because I think the different player interactions with those departments and Sandra work. Yeah. I do agree it's the best solo mode out of the Lacerdas. Two things put off it being the top 10, though. I still really enjoy it. I still would happily play it. One is rules overhead is still quite high. You've already got quite a heavy game to learn. It's not as bad as, say, Tricarion and anything like that. But you've got another few pages of rules to learn with a priority for how the two little bots work. I love the system. It is quite cool having the two little bots. One of them is kind of like the better employee and the other one's slightly worse. Yep. But it's kind of I got to learn these extra rules on top of Kanban, which slightly puts me off. But when I have played it, it's that was great fun. Yeah. The other thing is you mentioned the win condition, and we talked about this on that list as well. I hate the fact with all of these Lacerda games, I like the fact that you could get fired. Perfect. Yeah. Don't lose. But if I beat them, if I get to the end of the game without being fired, that is my success condition. I've won. Yeah. End of. It's got that tier system though, and I hate that in games where it's right, you finished and you thought you did well. Now let's see whether you managed to get X of all of these different categories, and if you don't, you're ranked apprentice and you're a noob. It's I hate that with a passion.
I only ever take a cursory glance at that. I don't. Again, this is a pure journey, not destination game for me. If I win and I beat them, then that's great. If I get a good score, that's even better. But I take a cursory glance at those. I don't make those my objectives because I like you. I don't like them. You mentioned the rules overview, and there is an additional solo rulebook for this. There's not massive changes. But of course, and we'll mention it because Paul's on the chat, the main rule book itself, which you'll read first, like all Vital Lacerda games that Paul writes the rule books for. The rule books are so well written, they are so well structured that you can read through that book, set the game up, and learn as you're kind of reading through the book. So thank you, Paul, for all the work that you've done on the Vital Lacerda games on making crunchy games accessible to most people.
I was going to say by making them playable, To an extent, I still gave up on Mars. There's only so much you can simplify a rule set for a game.
I will say though that obviously the solo in the box and On Mars was a very complex experience as you were doing lots of thinking. Yeah. The expansion, the Alien Invasion expansion, which has got the new solo mode, which I previewed last year, far improves that solo mode. I'm really looking forward to getting that officially through as well.
Yeah, he says he didn't do Lisboa, which is fine. Yeah, and I must admit that one's a little bit more tougher to get from the rulebook. Yeah. You mentioned Weather Machine. I'll just briefly mention. I liked it fine. First impressions was an 8. I played it with the same friends who I played. The one I mentioned earlier, Tricarion with. Same friends. We tried it out. And I did enjoy it. My friend liked it a lot more. This is going to be one of his favorite Lacerdas, I think. Yeah. I thought it was good, but when I was thinking, do I want to kickstart it? I decided no. I thought he's going to kickstart it. I'll let him do it rather than because I've only got room for 4 Lacerdas, frankly, and I already got rid of On Mars because I thought that is too complex for my care as to wanting to enjoy it. This one I liked, but I found it like out of all the themes, this one feels the most mechanical based.
Okay.
Like this one, I didn't really get into the theme of this whole weather machine thing because it's just categories of tiles. It's not like, oh, rain feels drastically different to sun. It's just, oh, you need to get this tile to match with that, with little robots and that. So the game was fun mechanically. I need to play it a couple more times to see if certain things that I didn't do in that game would change how I play or something. And, you know, I liked it and it does look cool. So this was one that's like, oh, if he says I want to play Weather Machine, I'll gladly step in and play it. But there was just something, just the lack of thematic immersion for me, I think just clipped it off wanting to pay 150 quid or whatever it was for it.
Yeah, so I haven't played it solo. I only played the 4-player game. And Scott Hill did a fantastic teach on this. And there were 4 of us that played it solo.
Yeah, you played with him.
Yeah, and I really, again, it feels the essence of Lacerda here. I'm really looking to forward to seeing the solo mode with what he's done with David Turksey. Randall from Eel Griffin's promised me a copy of this when it gets fulfilled. So they're certainly hitting and stacking up in my Lacerda collection.
You want to give him my name? No. Nah, I'll let my mate have this one, so I can worry about it when it comes out, if I can get a review or not. But yeah, it's like I say, I enjoyed it quite a bit. I enjoyed it a bit, but it's just like, it fell into that category of, would I pull it out over these? Possibly. Nah, I think I'd still pull out Vinyos because just that theme would get me in.
Vinyos is great, yeah.
Also, that even though Vinyos is probably now my 4th favourite out of that lot there, but again, it's like I don't have room for a 5th, and this one has to overtake those other 4. And on the first game, it doesn't overtake them.
Okay,
it just
fair enough.
It sits like nearer the bottom of a solid chart. I mean, like I say, on Mars, I don't class as bad. I class that as good. I just haven't got the patience for that much overhead.
Yeah.
Okay, free for me. All right, now this one you're not going to see coming. And to be fair, I don't know if any of my games on my list have got Digby's rules in it, and I feel bad for them if they don't. This is, I think, the only one on my list that's a Turksey, if I'm right, because I don't think I've done any Turkseys yet. This one, I think, is the only Turksey I've got. So it's probably going to be a 1-0 thing. But as I say, I still like a lot of Digby solos. It's just this one just happened to be on the top 10 list. But most people would not think about this one because Ludi Creations did not make a very good splash of getting this one known. They released a reprint of a really cool game called On the Underground like a couple of years back. And the game itself is great multiplayer. Capping it 3 players, though, I would say. But this little solo thing, I think you can only get if you buy it from them direct. It's called the Underground Challenge, and it's Bleasdale and Turksey. But it's basically, it says on it, 11 cards for London, 11 for Berlin, and 3 rules cards. That's it. It's a little mini deck of cards. And essentially what happens is that in the multiplayer game, you are fighting with the other players, you build your networks up slowly, and you move that lazy passenger around based on its like the deck of cards that come out. Like, it's going to go to here first, then go to here, get them to ride your network, score more points, connect up certain bits. The solo mode has these cards here, 11 for each map. They are pre-made, true-to-life networks that are in real life for the London Metro and the Berlin Metro. And they're already pre-built before the game even starts. So they've already got their line set up. And they've got a victory point count on each where their score marker starts, depending on how long or short the route is, or complexity, or difficulty, more accurately. And the only other change to the rules is the passenger moves twice each round. So it does its full movement like it normally would, and then you do another one, and then you have your turn again. There's no AI. There's no, like, you're not beating an AI and it's not fighting back. It's already got its established networks.
Yeah.
But because you now have to build from scratch around their networks, your goal is to overtake their score marker at some point.
Okay.
So they're going to get points during the game as the passenger rides their stuff. So they're going to continuously increase, but you've got to catch them up before the deck runs out. So no victory point score thing. It's just beat the timer. Well, beat the marker before the time runs out. And that's it. Super simple AI mode. But man, it's a good challenge because they've already got their networks done. It's like, you know, here's your orange one already built. There's a pink one here already built. And it's like, great. So if they're going to visit over there, you might have to think, well, I can't do nothing about that. Where can I build that the AI isn't? And at certain times, like, how can I just skip the AI a little bit, just tempt the passenger onto my network while also connecting up, say, these red ones or the blue ones or the green markers for extra points, to try and find a way to boost your marker that little bit faster. But yeah, stupidly simple. I just wish that they released it more on distribution, because I think it literally is only available from Ludi Creations direct.
Correct. That's a shame. Yeah, it looks interesting, that. Yeah.
Though, to be honest, I'm surprised they haven't done this or so. If anybody ever does a PNP file for this, then give them all the likes in the world, because this could easily just be a print and play.
Yeah.
Print out the cards, that's it. Because all you've got to do is just choose the 2 lines and the rules cards. That's it. There's no extra components. So if they haven't put this on their website as a as a print and play, they really ought to.
Yeah. It looks interesting. I've seen the main game around. Obviously, where it didn't have a built-in solo mode, so I've never really looked too much into it. But yeah, it looks like the kind of game that would provide a good challenge for me. I'm probably going to look at seeking this out. That solo mode doesn't sound overly complex. No massive rules overheads or anything like that. It's just relatively straightforward to implement. So yeah, probably going to go and seek this one out.
I say it's as a thing. It's just it gives me a different experience to multiplayer with barely any rules overhead.
Yeah,
perfect. You've created the perfect solo mode. Yep. People have mentioned Shinkansen. I did a review for that recently. The solo mode is fine. It works. I just don't think it's anything to sing home about. Probably better to play it solo than multiplayer, though, because the AP in multiplayer actually kills the game for me. It's an action point allowance type game, but you do all your action points before the next player.
Okay.
And the turn order is variable, so it has the Grand Austria Hotel problem.
Right.
With the snake turn order, you might go first in one round and then last in the second round. And when everybody's got to finish their action points before the next player, you could be sitting there for a while. It kills it for me in a multiplayer sense, but the solo's fine. It does it. And as I said, as I said later, this should be a PNP. So Ludi Creations, either get this into distribution or make a print and play of this, because you are really hurting yourself by not doing it. Also, where's my expansion? Where is my expansion map? Paris and New York. Hurry up. I'm waiting for more maps. Get on it. Seriously, slow. Moving on.
Okay, number 2 for me is a game that is a worker placement game, but it does have dice and it has an element of randomness in there. There is combat in this game, but it is predominantly a worker placement game. It's my favorite game released in 2020. I adore this game. My wife is out tonight. I'm going to play this game tonight. I'm going to set this up solo and play this game tonight.
2020.
I got the monsters that make sounds as you move them. You know which game it is. I'm, of course, talking Dwellings of Eldervale. By Luke Laurie and
I had this one. I had this one for your list. So I was thinking, 2020. Did it come out then? It's like,
it did. Yeah, I think I reviewed it at the back end of 2020. It was my favorite game released in 2020. It's just an awesome game. You've got loads of factions you can choose from, and they're all asymmetrical and they increase the difficulty. And it wasn't designed obviously as a solo game. And as Luke was going through the development process, there was call for a solo, and he came up with this solo mode that just slots in. It's so low overhead, only a little bit of extra rules to learn for it. You've got a deck of cards and a board on a separate board that you control the player from, tells you what actions they take, and you move their meeples around on the map. And that's it. But you're fighting against them for points. So there is a definite win condition here. You've got to get more points than the AI gets. You're expanding as you go across this territory, trying to build up your house things as you move over the territory. You combat or taking control of monsters, maybe combating monsters or combating the AI player, or you're all combating each other. It's got pretty unique kind of combat mechanism. You roll a set number of dice and then you set them in order, in order of value.
Yeah.
And then you look at them. So say if I've rolled, I don't know, a 6, a 5, and a 4, and the AI has rolled a 6, a 5, and a 3, I would win that combat. The 6 are the same, the 5s are the same, but then my next die in order has actually beat them. And you're rolling up to, I think, 5 dice, basically. But predominantly, it is a worker a worker placement game. You're going to put your players out to activate certain tiles on the board, and then doing what Luke Laurie does with, I think, Whistle Mountain and also with Cryo as well.
I think it's a shtick now, yeah.
Yeah. When you take them back off the board, you also activate certain icons on your tableau that's building up, because you're going to be building up this tableau underneath you. Fantastic production values, utterly amazing production values. It looks fantastic on the table. It has been a little bit like hen's teeth to get hold of, though. And I know they just made an announcement. They're doing a reprint later this year, slightly revamped reprint. Some of the stuff is not available in the standard, that is now available in deluxe, etc. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the combat system, I think someone just mentioned the combat. It's not going to be for everybody. I love it. I like an element of randomness in my games. That provides an element of randomness. It is mitigable. So as you build up and you choose certain meeples and certain workers to kind of use for combat, then you're going to get better dice or more dice to roll for them. So there is an element of mitigation there. But it tells this wonderful tale. I enjoy everything about Dwellings of Eldervale. It's a game that I don't tire of getting to the table, as I say, and it's going to be the game that hits my table tonight.
Yeah, I do think the solo mode is pretty solid in it, actually. I have played it, like the solo mode a few times, and it's like, yeah, this is pretty cool. I'd probably prefer to play it solo than multiplayer. It's been on my shelf, and I gave it an 8 when I reviewed it. I haven't brought it out for a long time, though, and some of these comments that I'm getting are kind of reiterating some of those points, because the theme in this is not as strong as I would have liked.
Yep.
Yeah, you've got those monsters with the sound bases that are a cool gimmick, but they only do so much. But what you're essentially doing is mopping up these little tokens for resources and then trying to put houses on areas while occasionally fighting each other. And like the cards that came out didn't feel like they... you've got 8 different, schools of magic, effectively, that the cards are coming out. And I never felt like if I'm going heavy on green and light, forest and light, that I'm playing this type of mage or this type of character. I just feel like, I've just chosen these colors over others. It's the theme wasn't as super strong, and that's hurt it a bit. A lot of people aren't a fan of the combat system.
Absolutely.
And I gotta admit, that is, I am a little hit and miss on the combat as well. It does feel quite swingy. And if you get hosed in the combat a lot, you're not really going to pull it back.
No, exactly right, and that's it, and that's why there is a mitigation strategy. So combat, with it being a Euro, and it's not necessarily a game that's based in combat. Combat is something that, in a lot of cases, you're going to want to try and avoid in Dwellings of Eldervale until you've got the right kind of meeples out in terms of the warriors, etc. So you can roll more dice in the opposition. Of course, it's dice, so there's always going to be an element of the fact that your dice aren't going to roll the right way. And maybe it would have been better not having a standard kind of D6, but also having something that had more hit points on certain things than others, just to try and balance that out a little bit. Some
kind of deterministic combat, I think, might have helped it a little bit, just so that you could kind of say where it was going there. But this one, a little bit of randomness is not necessarily a problem, but this one does have quite a fair bit of it, because you've got the dice for the combat, but then it's also like when the cards come out will have an influence as well, and some of the tiles. But I still enjoy it. But I think like from an 8, it would probably come down to a 7 at this point, and I would probably mainly just play it solo, because it is a solid AI bot system. The Ghosts of Eldervale, I think it's called.
That's right.
My question for myself, I've got to ask myself is, do I want to keep this giant box on my shelf as a solo-only game? It's like, don't know. So the future of this one is debatable. I might need to get it out for a multiplayer session and kind of reassess whether it's going to be a keeper or not. But yeah, like I say, I still enjoy it. And it's got a lot of good variety and good production quality. But it's like, do I need a box this big just for solo? And how often will I play it? It's like questions I got to ask myself.
So Paul's mentioned that he's not played the game, but the way it's described to him, it sounded awful. Obviously that's diametric opposite to where I am with this, Paul. And at the next GridCon, if you have time, I will bring Dwellings of Eldervale along with me, and we'll try and get a couple of hours in your very busy schedule, so yourself, me, and Luke can sit down and go through Dwellings of Eldervale with you. Yeah,
that'd be a good fun game. I think it's worth having a try. Yeah. But yeah, the randomness thing might be an off-put, so it'd be interesting to see the thoughts on that. But no,
I think that's what we mentioned at the beginning is, it's what is a Euro, and this is, at its heart, it's a worker placement game, but it has other mechanisms in there which bolt onto it, which make it, not for everybody. If you just like a straightforward Euro, where you can utterly plan and strategize everything and minimize the randomness, then it's not going to be a game for you.
Yeah, no one's commented on whether this was a Euro definition. I was like, I'd call it hybrid / Euro. I wouldn't call it Amerithrash, but no one's actually commented whether it's a Yeah, and yes, dates for GridCon 3 have been announced on the Slack channel. Book your time off. I'm sure I'll make time for, as long as you don't clash with my brother's wedding, which is the UK Games Expo, funny enough, actually, so you won't. Then, oh yeah, you're doing it in November. Yeah, of course it won't clash. It will be fine. All you got to do is just set yourself some time to play more games and let other people, let lackeys help organise it for you. Get a couple of volunteers in that takes the weight off your shoulders, I say. Don't do everything yourself. All right, number 2, as I said, Mark knows nothing. All right, he knows nothing about my list or what games I like. All the good games he knows of, I've taught him. This being one of them. Because let's face it, I mean, when you asked me to teach you this at GridCon, I had no qualms about, like, oh, I get to play this a third time this convention before I even own my own copy of the game. Yeah, of course, Ark Nova is on mine. I do. This was debatable as to make it my number 1 either. Yeah. I went back and forth. Is it my number 1 in that? And I think just the fact that the cards don't cycle quick enough was the one nitpick. Like the one nitpick that I think took it off from being number 1. But man, I played this like 3 times this week doing that challenge, which I failed. I gave up. Had a great first game, not the best second game, and then didn't catch up in the third or something. So I was like, but was still enjoyable. But man, I've been obsessed with this since I got it. Even before I got my copy, I was playing it on Tabletop Simulator enough to get the review done. And let's say lackey in a positive sense, you know what I mean? I mean highly respected and well loved volunteers. There you go. Yeah. But the cool thing with this is I just got obsessed with this card system, and I only just warmed up slightly to Terraforming Mars. The rest of it, I don't really care about that communal map. It doesn't really feel like much of a communal map. I mean, whoopee-doo, I care about where the trees go. But the card system is my favorite bit of Terraforming Mars. So now we've got the card system in this. But now I've got a theme which is so much better. I like animals. Animals are fantastic. Give me a zoo game, finally. Give me the asymmetric maps, and give me this action row selection, which I want in more games.
Yes.
I like Civ: A New Dawn. It's in that one as well, and I like that game. This one takes it and makes me... I love this idea of, I've got this action, it's more powerful if I leave it to stew in the oven, to bake in the oven for a little bit longer, but maybe I need to activate it early because I desperately need something, but it's weaker if I do. That's just such a cool decision-making thing that I would love to see used more often.
Yeah.
The photos, granted it's not... the artwork could be better on the playables. I get that the components are not top-notch with this thing, but I think the cards work. I can't find the specific card things, but the card images work great for something like animals. It all looks good. I learned something new about a different animal every time I play this.
Yeah.
So, I like the trolls there. It's like, is it like terraforming? I mean, I actually put it on my list. I said this killed Terraforming Mars. It was lowish on the list because I thought it's half like Terraforming Mars and half not. But I would still make the comparison. But yeah, I mean, Tom said the same thing. It's like he would not play Terraforming Mars because he now loves this. Yeah. And honestly, I'm the same. It's like if Ark Nova is in the bag and someone mentions, I fancy playing Terraforming Mars, I'll be like, but Ark Nova. It's like, come on.
I think as you mentioned, the solo game only being 27 moves. Sometimes in a solo game, it can feel like you're just getting your engine moving just as the game is coming to an end. Yeah, you could extend it, but then you'd just mess around with the whole scoring system at that point if you tried to do that, basically. So,
yeah, I mean, he says 50% like TF. I mean, this argument could be a whole different video. I mean, the main thing I get out of TFM is the cards and those milestones, both of which are replicated line for line, bit for bit in this game. The main difference is, other than theme, is the communal map. That's pretty much and the drafting. The drafting just makes the game drag on, in my opinion, and the communal map, as I said, is a difference. This is a bit more multiplayer solitaire than Terraforming Mars, but honestly, all I find that I do with the communal map in Terraforming Mars is care about where my trees go. It's like, have you built cities? Right, I'm not going to put trees next to yours. I'm not going to put trees next to your cities then. It's like, have I put a city down and you're building trees? Great, I'll build next to your trees. I don't care where the water goes. Everybody goes to the bonuses first anyway, so the same spaces get taken up on each map every game.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's overhyped a little bit, that aspect. But as I say, we could do that in a whole other video. We've already talked enough about this. People are getting sick and tired of Ark Nova being mentioned in everything. But yeah, I love it. Super simple solo mode. Mark's already said everything there is to say about it. Awesome, but what could have possibly beat it?
I'm going to apologise to David Digby because he's another Turksy solo here.
We do love you, Digby. We do love you.
We do, David. Really, really do love your stuff, and keep
making solos. Yeah.
I haven't played Tinner's Trail yet, so I will right that wrong at some point as well. Paul says Mage Knight, or I'm unsubscribing. Oh man, this was
you could debate if that's a Eurogame or actually, yeah, it's a Eurogame.
Yeah. Well, I got it in my head as a deck builder, and
although this is top 10, remember, so we're only talking about good games, right?
Oh, yeah, Paul, this was on and off my list because Mage Knight was on and off my list. It's not on my list, but it is a fantastic game with a great rule book and some great expansions there by somebody. I don't know who did them. Anyway, going back to my number one game. Anyway. Going back to my number one game, it's another Turksy game. It is of the current releases of Mind Clash. It's my favourite Mind Clash game.
Oh, right, yeah.
I love everything about this. I waited until the Infinity Box came out. Of course, I'm talking Anachrony, the Infinity Box. I've got the huge box with absolutely everything in it. And it's a game that repeatedly hits my table. The solo mode fully weaves into almost every aspect of all the expansions. I think there's only one expansion that it doesn't work with, which is the councils or whatever it's called. I can't remember.
I don't play with... I play with Fractures... And that's it. I don't like all the mini expansion stuff.
I like adding those modules just to give me a different experience. But I know when I'm going to play Anachrony, I can set it up and I'm in for 2 hours of an absolutely fantastic time where I go to the future and borrow resources from myself. Then I have to pay them back. I'm taking more of these bots, whatever they are, and putting them on the board and getting my resources. I've got this bloody comet or asteroid, the event... coming and hitting the Earth at some point, and depending on which expansion you play with, you either want that to happen or you don't want that to happen. So much gameplay here, and there are 2 solo bots for it as well. You've got the Chronobot, which was the first iteration, and then you have Chronosis, which is the next iteration of the solo bot. Now,
well, it's basically a replacement, really, isn't it?
It is a replacement. When I got it, I followed the advice and I played with Chronobot to get used to it. But then I played with Chronosis, and once I played with Chronosis, I've never gone back to Chronobot. It changes the game. It's a really intelligent AI that works against you, makes a really good challenge. So many different strategies to employ with Anachrony. I love the theme, love everything about this game. As I say, of the current Mind Clash games, it's right at the top there for me. As you can see, is my number one solo Euro of all time. I think it's just an absolutely fantastic game that hits so many marks as you play it. Exosuits, that's what they're called.
Yeah.
Thanks,
What did you call them?
Robots.
No. There are people in them. They go out and pilot the mechs, and then I take them back to my planet and liquefy them. It's all good.
Paul said Perseverance might be better for him. Obviously, I played at Essen. I played episode 2 of Perseverance. Only one game. Well, only a bit of one game. Really looking forward to that arriving. And of course, I previewed Voidfall as well, which was just utterly stunning. But at the moment, this is utterly fantastic. Right, deservedly right at the top of my list.
Yeah, Anachrony is my favorite of the those games, and I do enjoy it, and I have played. This was the Chronobot one. Yeah, I was trying to find a good image. This is like the Chronobot in there. Man, did I freak out when I saw this board. And this is why it doesn't make my list. It's the same thing that Utukarion does. I think I love Anachrony, play it as multiplayer, love it to bits. Enjoy it solo. It's the overhead, though. There's so much you've got to deal with this Chronobot. It's not just move a token on the track and do something. It's like I've got to remember how this track works and another rule set for the AI. It's like I just wanted a simpler rule set on top. It's definitely well crafted, and the Chronosis is definitely the better way to do it. This Chronobot was fine. Chronosis is basically just destroyed it or something. It basically refined the system. I wonder if I can even spell it right. I don't know if I can spell it right in order to actually get a proper image, but Is that the one? Would that do? Oh, God. All right, this is all going to pot, but maybe that'll work. Oh, it's open. Oh, it's opened another tab. That's why. All right, never mind. Never mind. Well, I say not going to be able to find it, but it's just with this is that overhead thing. I will gladly play this multiplayer any day of the week because I love it and I enjoy the solo fine. It's just another one of those how much effort do I want to put into a heavy solo mode, and it just sort of goes just that little bit extra, especially if you throw in expansions.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, playing this, I've never played it with anybody else. I've only played it solo. That makes that solo bot easier to control for me because I learned that rule set, and therefore it's not that much of an overhead. But if you're used to playing it, obviously with other people, then learning the other rules, like with most games, can be a bit of a thing. But I don't find it necessarily too difficult to implement.
I mean, when you've got to remember the rules of how everything else works, it's like it's an extra bit. Like I find myself taking as long on that turn as I do with my one, and I would only. I mean, I don't think I did try it with fractures because I think you have to with Chronossus. I don't think you can play it with the base set only, so you have to. I do not throw in the mini expansions at all because it's just one of those examples of too much bloat. You know, Anachrony is already a super heavy game. Fractures makes it super heavier, insane. The extra bits like Doomsday and the Future Imperfect and stuff, it's like, it's just more rules on top of rules. It's like, no, the game is already a 10 out of 10 without all those extras in. I don't need them.
I love them.
It's like, there's only so many rules I can be bothered to teach people. But yeah, I do love the game. It's just, like I say, it's the overhead. It's just how much effort do you want to put in. Obviously, like I say, you spend a lot of time digging into these. I had the same problem with Procyon, Defense of Procyon thing, where, again, it's like, I got to learn this solo mode and I need to read 2.5 rule books. No. It's like I will go play my Fields of Arle or Viscounts or something. It's just like, apparently you can play the Chronossus with the base game, but
yeah, you can.
I mean, I don't see any reason you would play the Chronobot over Chronossus, though. It just
only to learn the mechanisms. That's all. You start with Chronobot, and then you'd upgrade to Chronossus, basically, and then never go back. Yeah,
that could work. All right, now remember I mentioned earlier that I was just debating whether this is a Euro. I had to put up a Facebook thread for this because I had to ask the question and get people's opinions, and they have more sided with the fact that this is a Euro or potentially hybrid. Some of them have said, oh, it doesn't fit into any category. And it's like, well, no, that's not good enough. I need a category here, all right? Otherwise, people are going to kill me with pitchforks. But this is overlap, yes. But honestly, when I thought about it, I thought this is either hybrid or Euro, despite the fact that it's probably the most thematic, different Euro ever. There's no victory points. It's co-op. It's still got very little luck in it, though. It's still effectively a puzzle game. It's just got so much theme in it that you cannot say it's like, it's just a testament to its great design. I think Spirit Island's a Euro game. And I might get killed for this, but I think it's Euro or closer to hybrid / Euro. I don't think it's outside that category.
Yeah, I could have obviously guessed this was going to be your number one game. And I think it's got enough Euro mechanisms going for it that you could class this as a Euro. So I'm not going to discount this for you. I'm going to say, okay, if Paul was pushing for Mage Knight, then absolutely, I think, you can get Spirit Island in here. I got Dwellings, which is very much a hybrid game. I would say that this, it's got I suppose some deck construction in there. Deck building in there. But yeah, a bit of expanding.
It's a miniature of that, but it's like, right, so putting stuff on the board, doing everything on your player board is all determined and, mechanics. Getting cards into a little mini deck's no different from something like Arnak and that. The event deck is an expansion element for a tiny bit of luck, but even a Euro game can have event decks. And the Invader deck is obviously draw a card, again, no different from Euro, but there's no die rolling, there's no other thing. It's like your plans can sometimes get messed up, but not in the sense that you would call this a luck-based game. If you've got the skill for this game, you will do well. And like I say, Paul's on my side, 90% Euro. So I had to debate. I thought, if this is a Euro, it's my number one. If it's not on the list. And it's like, I got to get this definition right. I don't agree, though, that this is better as a multiplayer. I mean, I do love this game a bit. It was my number one of all time. So it's not like I hate multiplayer. But 90% of my games I've played of this have been true solo. Just me, one spirit, go at it. Super fast. The setup does not take very long. The game, it could take me 30 minutes, it could take me 90 minutes, 2 hours, if depending on how hard I've got to think about my turns. Gives me all the meatiness. Now, you can play this two-handed. I've tried two-handed. It's just maybe a little bit too much to juggle around now and again. But I do get that two-handed is a good way to play it because you get the spirit synergies. Multiplayer, I do like it, but I will only play this multiplayer. 2-player if I'm teaching it. 3 or 4 if people know this game better than I do. Yeah. Which I do have friends who are like that. I mean, that's how I got back into Spirit Islands. You know, some friends who from a Portsmouth club who know this game like inside and out, are definitely bigger players of it than I am even, taught me this again. And after getting such a better teach, that's what brought me back into this. And so when we do a 3 or 4 player game, I'm kind of letting them guide the game a little bit. Yeah. And I'm throwing in my 2 cents of, I think we should do this or something. But they'll be the first to correct me on rules and things.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I had to think about whether it was a Euro, but once I was settled, it was a Euro. It's like, yeah, how can it not be my number one? There is no more thematic Euro game in existence, I find, in this thing. It's just that good.
Yeah, you know my thoughts on it. It's a game I sold last year. I'd had it for a while, and there's no denying it's a great game. You know, there's he deserves all the praise that it get. He just never clicked for me. And yeah, it's easy to kind of set up, and it provides a good challenge and lots of elements to like about it. A bit like Arnak, where everything mechanically works,
right?
But it just doesn't all gel for me personally. I can understand why many people love this. Yeah,
I was expecting Arnak to be on your list, like lower down. I was shocked they didn't turn up at all. And I like the solo in it fine, but yeah, I'd probably rather play Arnak multiplayer, honestly.
So no, Arnak, I don't like it. I prefer Dune Imperium over Arnak, tell you the truth. So
no,
yeah.
Wrong.
by a factor of about 50. But anyway, going back to Spirit Island, everything. The reason I mentioned Arnak is because Arnak, like this, mechanically, all the mechanisms work. It's really well crafted, really well designed. But for whatever reason, this just didn't hit it for me. So I had it for kind of 18 months. I got the Branch and Claw expansion, played it with that. Still didn't totally enjoy the experience. It was a bit of a damp squib for me. So yeah, it doesn't work for me. But I know it's your number one game of all time.
Yeah, not for everyone, definitely. I mean, there are certain people who might say, "Oh, should I try this?" And I say, "No." It's like, stay the hell away, because I know that they would like absolutely hate it. But because not every game is for everyone. But true solo, I just need one board. That there, choose a spirit, completely different game depending on the spirit. It's just absolute crazy. I do like that. Yeah, I've just noticed like Paul's one there. I mean, Brenda's on your side. Yeah. I wonder if Brenda would change her mind if she'd played half of the ones on my list though, because like I say, I mentioned a PvP mode for Seven Wonders Duel and a solo one that you've got to buy from the website for. Try them. You'd be surprised. You might align with me more than you think.
No, I think the difference between the two lists are obviously mine are all good games, and other than Ark Nova,
most of them are good games, although some of them are not as much Escape Plan. But but yeah, I mean, we only crossed over on Ark Nova. That is I didn't think it would be so little crossover.
Yeah,
even though we like the games, we just differ on whether we like to play it more multiplayer or solo, like the Mind Clash ones.
Yeah, and I think we could have guaranteed that Ark Nova would have been a crossover between both of us. We've spoken a lot about how Ark Nova works, but and how much we both like it. But it's good, and I think that both these lists, you look at the 20 games on there, it just shows the depth and breadth of Euro experiences for people, and how you may prefer like a slightly drier one than maybe I prefer something like Fields of Arle or some of the other Rosenberg games, or the farming type thing. Whereas I, on Escape Plan, which is not something that doesn't really interest you at all, I love the thematic integration on that. So I just think it goes to show that there's just Eurogame is more than people think. It's not just about pushing cubes around on a board and collecting resources. You do get a very different experience from very different Eurogames.
Nah, that works. And I mean, I get the spirit synergize in this game, but I get a kick out. I can win with certain spirits solo. It's just good fun. Yeah. Right, chat. I know it's just over 2 hours, but throw some games in that we haven't mentioned, because there's a lot of Euro games solo that works considered. And I did have a short list in the sense of like, oh, these are ones, but throw some stuff in the chat that you're expecting. Like people mention like Boon Lake, on Facebook, like, is that going to be in the list? No, we found that very meh as a solo mode for Boon Lake.
The solos,
that wouldn't come anywhere near.
Yeah, no, nothing. Somebody mentioned the T games here, so
nope. It's same problem as with the Mind Clash stuff. Too much overhead.
See, Teotihuacan I hadn't got rid of, but I do like Tekenu. I think Tekenu has a great solo challenge there. But yes, the T games, Tekenu. We mentioned Cerebria. For me, one that didn't make the list, it's a lot of people's darlings, is Obsession. So I got this Christmas period. It's a fine game. It's a good game, and I understand why people like it because it's fairly accessible. I just find it a bit of a... It's not a meta experience. It's just not something that would appear on my list. I will play it, and I will play it again. But it just doesn't... It's not the lightning in a bottle for me that a lot of people seem to think Obsession is.
I played it multiplayer. Funny enough, actually, David Digby's the one who taught me this, I think.
Right.
I think we were at a different convention, and I liked it fine. We played it 4-player, and I just could not see the point of it being multiplayer. I mean, you fight over these 2 characters for marriage or something each round or every now and again. That's about it. Otherwise, I just don't care what they're doing. But the game was fine. I enjoyed the mechanics of it. But the only way I could kind of get immersed in it... I mean, I gave it a 7. I thought this was good. I do think it's overrated as all get out, though. The amount of, like, quote-unquote obsession, no pun intended, for this... that this game has, I think is just because of like the same way Ark Nova gets a ton of hype. It's just scarcity of supply more than anything else. But I mean, this theme can get in the sea as far as I'm concerned. I still have post-traumatic stress syndrome from learning Pride and Prejudice in English GCSE and watching the god-awful 6-hour episodic serial or whatever that was with Colin Firth and that. I have had... During that English time, I just remember having like balls and Mrs. Bennet and God knows what else drilled into my skull on a regular basis. So playing this game was not, I couldn't care about Downton Abbey and all this lot. So playing this, I'm like, why am I going to get into this game? I at least was able to hammer up and just make fun of the theme and get into it. Like, I was obviously like twisting what was going on in my like setup to be a bit more comedic than it actually was. But I mean, put it this way, you couldn't even make this theme work when you added zombies to it. That's a fail in my book, So, I mean, I would actually play this zombies expansion for Obsession. That'd be great.
Be good, that. So I live in Sheffield, and I live about 15 miles away from where the whole Obsession and everything is set. It's all based on Chatsworth, about 15 miles away from where I am. So there's a local interest there, but I have no real interest in Downton Abbey. And I think the Obsession is great production values, relatively straightforward to learn, easy for people to get into. And if you like that particular theme, then it's going to hit the nail for you. And I like it fine. I think it's a good game. There's nothing wrong with Obsession. Just doesn't really kind of nail it for me. Yeah.
Right. Well, let's look at the other ones like in a bit more quicker. So yeah, we mentioned the T games. The T games are just too much overhead. I mean, they're well designed. Turkey's done most of them, but again, it's like I hate priority diagrams in games. I hate it when it's like, right, did you enjoy the multiplayer mode? Here's another 5-6 pages of rules for solo mode, and while you're playing a game, expect to check this endlessly every time the AI takes their turn when you figure out, right, so they're going to do this. So hang on, so when they do this action, they prioritize, if I'm there, they go there, and if Venus aligns with Mercury, they do that. And it's like, I cannot be bothered. And Teotihuacan, Tekenu, don't get me started on Tywin Tinsuyu's solo mode, Tabanusi, all these solo modes were just, I mean, Paul Grogan and I played like the solo mode for Tabanusi. I don't think Turksy did that one. I think that was a Tassini one. But again, it just was fiddly to go through. So I don't play any of the T games solo at all. I actually had a moment of, oh God, did I forget this one? Imperium. I do like that one game, and I would probably only play it solo.
It's not Euro.
Did think it is a Euro. It's a deck builder.
Okay,
that's a Euro. Yeah, how's it not a Euro? You're fine with Spirit Island, but you're fine with Imperium.
Well, ish. As I say, ish. I think Spirit's got more about it. Anyway, yeah, go on. Yeah, I'm fine, but it wouldn't fall into my definition of Euro, but that's fine.
That's surprising, but I mean, I do like this. As I say, I do only really play it solo, so I did wonder. It's like, oh, did I forget that? Should this have been on the list? But the thing that I think puts it in my teens rather than my top 10 is the length.
Yeah.
It's a fun game. Love the variety. Love the mechanics. It is long though. This game needs to be cut. You need to house rule this game to get the length down, and that cuts it out of my top 10 because I have to house rule this to cut the length down. Otherwise, you're playing a very long deck builder for a solo mode. But like I say, the game is still good fun, so I do like give this one props.
Imperium didn't click for me in any way. Imperium, I think it's well crafted, and I understand why people like it. Just did nothing for me. Yeah.
Fair enough. I didn't like Blackout Hong Kong as a multiplayer game, so I had no interest in playing it solo.
So,
I mean,
I got this last week, Blackout Hong Kong. I played solo twice. It's different for a Fister game, but I like it. I like it a lot, Blackout Hong Kong, from what I played so far. I'm not too sure what the longevity is on Blackout Hong Kong. Once you've kind of gone through that solo campaign and maybe won, I don't know if there's any reason whether it's solvable, but it's relatively low price at the moment. I think it's less than £30. And from what I played, really, really good game. I'm enjoying that more than I thought I would.
Yeah, I bounced over. The AP in multiplayer drove me so mad. I just I've got to wait an eternity for you to hurry up and decide what cards you want. It's like, come on, I know it's hard, but like, hurry up. And I gotta admit, would you even touch Obsession? And I mentioned it. Yeah, granted, the theme is like diametrically opposite to what I should be interested in, but I'll try any game once. You get these hidden gems, and I wanted to at least see what the hype was about because everyone kept banging on about it. But as I say, I got to have fun with the theme by just taking the chronic mick out of it while playing it. And as I say, it's fine. I think it probably works better as a solo game. Viticulture, I prefer to play that multiplayer, honestly. 3 or 4 player, definitely.
Really don't like Viticulture at all. I find it one of the most vanilla gaming experiences
Unsubscribe.
I've ever had. I got the Essentials edition, and no, it's just not for me. If I'm going to play a game about wine, I know they're different. I'm going to play Vignos, not Viticulture. Viticulture just does. I just find it completely.
Vignos is good. Vignos is great. I do like it, but that's more about running the wine business. I want the farming wine stuff, which is why. Bloody Viticulture down there. I do love that game. That is good. But
boring as all hell.
Not boring. You've already meant
boring.
I forgot. Hang on. Where's your list? So, where have we got? Boring. Escape Plan, maybe. Oh, great. Oh, yeah. Great. Yeah. Great Western Trail. No. Gaia Project. Meh. Golem. I like. Escape Plan. No. Excavation Earth. I found boring. The rest of your games I actually all like. It's just a case of more multiplayer than solo. Like all the Chicarion and Acrony dwellings. It's just a case of like what side of the coin. But yeah, I think there was only Great Western Trail, Escape Plan, and I give Gaia Project some respect, so I'll avoid that one. And Excavation Earth. So it was really only 3 that I would have gone mad for. Gugon. Not played it solo. I barely played it. I played it briefly enough to review it, and that was about it. Red Cathedral. I've played it once multiplayer. It's still on my shelf downstairs, and I enjoyed it. But man, the AP is such a killer in that game. I think I've played it solo once and thought it's fine. It's just nothing to write home about.
I'll tell you one that could have gone on the list, and it would probably be my in the top 20 is Merv solo. No, there is a bit of
the game is fine, but priority diagrams don't like them.
Yeah. But I think that's a David Digby solo mode, the Merv, and it is. I really enjoyed that. It surprised me how much I enjoyed the solo on that. But yeah, there is some working out to do with Merv in terms of the solo game there. But I played it more than I thought I would, Merv, and I would quite happily get that back to the game as a solo experience.
It's just, like I say, it's like I've got to read the priority diagrams. Batoku was another example. Oh my god, if you deserve to be in Mensa or NASA if you can figure out the solo mode in Batoku. It is so complicated alongside those horrible rules. The priority diagram is a page long. Fail. It's like that is too much rules overhead. It's like neither of them love Viticulture. It's like I love Viticulture.
Luke does.
I just don't play it solo. But yeah, you want to play a 3, 4, 5, 5 maybe. But yeah, you want to play a 3 or 4 player of Viticulture. I'm down.
So why wasn't Arnak on your list then, Luke?
I like it fine. I mean, I love it as a multiplayer game. The tension for spots is a bit better. The tension for the cards and people exploring the map at the same rate. the solo is fine. I haven't played it that much though. I certainly haven't played the full like campaign of it.
Yeah.
And it's like I enjoy it. I just wouldn't put it as top 10. It's like it's cool.
Yeah.
It's like it's not something to write home about, but it's another way to play Arna. But I think I get quite a kick out of playing it with more people.
More people. Okay.
So it just overtakes on there. I have no idea what Rococo's like as a solo.
It's very, very good. Very, very good solo. Better with more people. But the beauty about Rococo is two things. First of all, again, it's another Eagle Griffin game, so the production value is out of this world. Looks great. It's Rococo Deluxe that we're looking at, Luke. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I figured. I wouldn't even look at the old one.
But it's a relatively straightforward game to play. You're dressmaking. You're building up these games for this ball in the one of the kings of France's kind of grand balls. And yeah, it's
and at that point the theme ends.
Yeah, well, yeah, but even so, you're kind of pulling. You're pulling dresses and things out of the bag, and you're building your deck of workers up as well to try and get more, get better cards to play. Plays really smooth solo. I can't remember the name. It's like the Grand Lady or the Queen or something like that. The solo mode is that you're playing against there. Really, really nice. I would highly recommend it. A little bit expensive, but I recommend Rococo for that kind of not lightweight, not kind of mid-weight, but somewhere in between. If you're looking to your game in the Euro,
mid-weight at least. That's not light.
Yeah, once you start playing, that's what I'm saying. It's not lightweight.
Gamers are biased, yeah. Remember,
it's lower midweight, if anything, but I think it's fantastic. Yeah.
I need to play it again because I mean, saw my rating there. I played the old version once, gave it a 6. I thought like, I wouldn't seek it out, but I thought it was okay for a dry Euro. This new one does look beautiful. I'll give it that, but it's like someone needs to sort of bring it out and show me it again, and I'd give it a second play to see if maybe my tastes have changed because I think it was quite a long time since I played it. So maybe tastes have changed enough that I would appreciate it more. But I certainly didn't want to back it for that one. But interesting to say the least, if nothing else. What have we got? Living Forest, I don't know. I played it multiplayer in Essen. Thought the game's fine. It's decent enough. I've not tried it solo. Raiders, I've not even played Raiders specifically yet because frankly, I've got Raiders and North Sea, so you don't need both. I'd just rather keep the one I've got. Is Legendary Encounters Alien a Euro if deck building is a Euro mechanic? I don't see why not.
And it is a great game. Yeah, a really thematic game.
Dominion's a Euro, Jacarion, people are agreeing with. Welcome to the Moon. I keep hearing hype about this. I know Vassal loves it a bit. The first thing that hits my mind, though, is flipping right or Xing right, and I instantly don't care. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I will make an exception possibly for Hadrian's Wall just because of the hype and just the fact that it is a ridiculous spreadsheet. But anytime I see a roll and write game, I just roll my eyes. It's just like, oh, look, another pad and pencil game. It's like, none of them give me anything new. Dune Imperium, this is one of those reviews I regret or something like that. I gave it an 8 when I first played it because I did acknowledge flaws and I thought, but no, I'm enjoying this one. It's gone down in my ratings as I've had more plays, and I do think the solo mode's fine in it. I think it's probably better playing it solo than multiplayer, actually, honestly. So I'd give it props, but yeah, you're about to say sorry, so I'll let you cut in for a sec.
It was one that was in my top 10, and then I pushed it out of my top 10 when I brought other games in there. I genuinely enjoyed Dune Imperium as a solo game. I play with the app, so you can cycle through the market rather than just the AI deck of cards. And I know it doesn't work for some people. There's always this comparison between Dune Imperium and Arnak. They do share some.
They're not similar.
They share some similar mechanisms. That's it, basically. So
barely. I mean, this is worse than the TM and Art Nova argument. I think this is very loose.
Yeah. So there is always this thing there. The two experiences I much prefer from a solo perspective, Dune Imperium, because I don't know, thematically it feels better for me. Don't get me wrong, I think Arnak, the exploration thing is great. Just everything kind of ties here. I like the combat in this. I like building up, my resources, etc., and the worker placement that you've got. Yeah, I love Dune Imperium. Didn't make my top 10 list because I think the other games I put on there for me work better as a Euro game.
Yeah, I'd rather play the solo than multiplayer because multiplayer drags out like crazy. I mean, this ends up being like a 90-minute, sometimes 2-hour Euro at times. It's like, that is too long because the game does not accelerate. It like takes a while to get through those 10 rounds. I wish it aesthetically looked like they spent more than 50p on it, but oh well, that's just, either way. I really don't like the aesthetics. the game, I did like it more at first. I think it just really has. I think it's mainly due to the cards because I don't. I mean, whatever. You can make worker placement into just about anything. It's there. It functions. Whatever. The factions don't really seem that like well for that and that, but I like the cards. I like the deck building part of this game. The problem is the cards are 50% garbage because you don't go through your deck quick enough. It's not like a normal deck builder where you're really going for your deck quick. Like by the time you've got some cool cards, you might see them used once, maybe twice, and then the game's over.
Yeah.
And when you see the display of cards, anything priced about 3 or over is like, oh yeah, this is worth getting. And there are some, like the Worm Rider card there, that is clearly overpowered compared to some others. Like this, you get this Worm Rider card and you just dominate combat phase. But there are anything priced 1 or 2. I just look at the card and I just think this is barely a starter card. Why would I make my deck bigger? Because there's so few ways to trash cards in this game, which is another problem I have. I like Viscounts for the fact that there's a good amount of ways to trash cards in your deck if you want to do it. Here, you have to go out of your way to trash cards. And again, because you don't cycle through your deck quick enough, you don't see the effect of trashing cards. Now, a friend of mine loves this game and he wants to play it with me with the expansion. I'll give it a crack and see if that improves it for me. But yeah, I mean, this is one of those ones where I think after playing it a few times, I got more into it, and then after more plays, I'm back to like a 6. You know, I find that everyone's going on about it and just ignoring a lot of the flaws with this game a bit too easily. And it's nothing to do with the fact that I hated the Doom movie. All right, you know that did not affect my opinion at all because that was before I watched Dune. You know, I wanted to enjoy that movie. It just bored the living crap out of me.
No,
that's going to get me back. I'm sorry, but if I want to spend 3 hours looking at desert, I'll just watch Star Wars. You know, it's like, and for like watch Tatooine or something. But God blimey, that director just cannot accelerate a plot. It's like he did it with Blade Runner and he did it with Dune. It's like, just get on with it. Stop showing me deserts and get on with the plot. I don't know, but to different strokes. Feast for Odin, I did consider that, but I have not played it in a while. It's another one of those where I'm going to have to learn a bucket load of rules again. Yeah. But yeah, I do prefer to play it solo than multiplayer. I think this would probably be somewhere in the 15 to 20 mark. Yeah. I just need to get it out. And yeah, you need to hurry up and get your Norwegians expansion out.
Yeah, it's true.
that Norwegians expansion not only makes the game better, it fixes the game. It actually, because honestly, the base game, as good as it is a bit broken in some respects. Some actions and some routes are just clearly better than others. You know, like if you win the game with animals in the base set only, I dare to say you either got the rules wrong, or you cheated, or your opponents were drunk. Because I don't think it's physically possible. Norwegians improves the animals, though, to the point where I have actually won doing an animal strategy. It's like, you know, it doesn't make it stupidly powerful, but it's now put it on par with it. I think it just got the balance right. Yeah. So it's like, I will not play this without Norwegians included. I don't care if it's solo or multiplayer, my copy or someone else's. If you haven't got Norwegians, we're not playing this. It's that good of an addition.
I will try it next time I get it. Next time I decide to play Feast Road, now we'll obviously use the Norwegians expansion at that point. Yep.
Why don't do that tonight instead of Dwellings?
I got fancy Dwellings tonight. Yeah.
Okay. Trismegistus. Nah, I didn't like the solo in that one at all. Petrichor. I wasn't a big enough fan of the game to try it solo, but you're a fan of it, so
I like it. I like it a lot, Petrichor. I think it's a quite unique theme, and it's a very relaxing game to play, but still challenge. I know they just delivered the kind of big box to a lot of people with all the expansions in there as well. So I think we'll start to see a bit of a resurgence on Petrichor in the next few months.
Enough. Maracaibo is better solo than multiplayer, but I don't know, just the lack of any thematic immersion for me sort of like kills at me. I mean, I like it fine. I like the multi-use card system, and I did have it on my shelf for a little while before I got rid of it. But you know, I couldn't convince anyone to play it multiplayer with, because the ones I did play it with kind of like meh on it. So I tried to play it more solo, and the lack of any kind of story or like immersion factor, I think, just meant I'd rather play other solos. And it's not the quickest setup either.
No, it's not. You got those little wooden discs that you knock your table once and they fly everywhere. I mean, that's just awful. And I thought the game was I thought the game was good, and I played it, but I had issues with how they handled colonialism in the game, so I ended up getting rid of it. That's for me personally.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not going to be everybody's thoughts on that. I think I understand why people like Maracaibo, but I won't play it again.
I need to take that down. Whoop. There we go.
No,
It's more accurately a 7, I think, now or something. It's like I still give it a browse. I mean, I get the whole colonialism thing. I'm very much a separate like fiction from reality type thing. So if it's in a board game or in a film or something, I just cast it as separate. So that sort of thing doesn't usually bother me as much. This one just had a lot of fiddly setup. Fair bit of rules. Those brown discs are the bane of all board games. I don't need to have to spend money on overlays to correct a mistake that the publisher should have realized within 2 seconds of playtesting. But the other thing that's killed this one as a board game is the app. The app is so much easier to play solo. If you want to play this game solo, get the app. There's no reason to have the physical board game for solo only. The app will just do it much smoother and better. Which is fine. A couple of Dune Imperium bits like that. Juicy Fruits. I mean, I don't know what that is.
Never heard of it. Nope.
Juicy Fruits. I don't know. Juicy Fruits. 2021 game. I've seen the cover for this, but I've not played it. I mean, I like Juicy Fruits in terms of the fruit, but no idea. Somebody would have to show me this one. Merchant's Cove. I have got very little interest in trying this one out. I know that Mike DeLisio goes on about this one, but one thing I'm not a fan of in games is this. I like asymmetrical player powers. I like asymmetrical boards. We mentioned Art Nova and stuff like that. I'm not the biggest fan of fully asymmetrical players, because that is a bit of a problem. Because I mentioned it with Procyon Defense, whatever, same problem there. Root, I like it, but if it wasn't for the app, I would never understand how to play the game, and even then, I'm not the best at it. Merchant's Cove's another one. There was Vast, and there might be one other, I can't remember. But these games where everybody plays a completely different game to everybody else, they're not practical. They are impossible for me to teach. And so with my setup where I have to play with multiple different people on a regular basis, I just can't get them to work.
Mm-hmm. So I've only played this once, not the physical copy. I played on TTS with Drake Villarreal, who's one of the designers, I believe, the solo designer, and Mike from One Stop Coach Shop and Will from Hungry Gamer. And it was fine. But only playing the game once, got no real opinion on it. I don't own a copy of the game, so maybe it's something I'll pick up at some point. I don't know. I know you got the all the expansions like Secret Stash had various things on there.
Too many modules. Another one of those Kickstarter tropes. But I mean, I get maybe this is a fun game. I don't know, but there's clearly going to be some that are more fun than others. Like the marble one sounds like something I'd like. But then another one that might be a card thing might not care about. So I've got to be a specific player. But then I'm not going to teach 4 separate games to players every time I bring this out. That would drive me nuts.
Yeah.
Looks beautiful. I get it. But they're just impractical. Now, could it work solo? Maybe. But I didn't want to get it on that basis. Pax Pamir.
I almost put that on my list. Yeah, I've got it back here somewhere. It's there. I love it. I think Richard Wilkins did a fantastic job with the solo mode there. I really like Pax Pamir Second Edition a hell of a lot. It probably currently just outside my top 10 list for Euro games, but at any one point that could easily go into my top 10 list. Yeah.
I have to admit, I've only played it the once. A friend of mine taught it to me and a few others. I liked it. I couldn't figure out what I was supposed to be doing in it and the whole thing. But I liked it more than I thought I would. I thought I was going to bounce off it quite hard. But in the end, I came out thinking I'd play it again, to learn it a bit more. No idea what it's like solo. I don't even understand how it even works solo because of the interaction you need with the players, but it must somehow work. But it's like if somebody wants to bring that out, I'd happily try it again. I just wouldn't seek it out specifically. These ones count. Yeah, I mean, Nemo's War is a solo-only game, frankly. It might as well be. Just too much dice rolling for my liking. I don't really care too much about Nemo as a story thing, but it works. I can see why people like it. And Robinson Crusoe, I pretty much mainly only play it solo. If I do, it's just not top 10 material. Although that Book of Adventures might bring it out a bit more, the expansion to it. That could be pretty sweet. Just I think, was there any others on my shortlist? I mean, Kanban was on the shortlist. Architects was considered. Vindication, rather play it multiplayer. Wingspan, it's probably one of the better of the AI automners, but again, I'm happy to play it multiplayer. Feast for Odin, Cerebria, I just haven't played... I don't think I've played Cerebria solo yet, so I couldn't really do it. Underwater Cities was the one... Do you remember I mentioned about victory point target that's too hard?
Yeah.
Underwater Cities was the one I was referring to. The game... I love Underwater Cities, and the solo is fine, but it wants you to get 100 victory points in solo mode. I don't think I've ever done it. It's too hard, and that's a put-off. You know, why I ignore the targets in Kanban. They're too hard to achieve.
Yeah.
And if you know that your efforts are going to be mostly futile, it's a put-off. I want a nice 50% balance, you know, of win to lose. You know, I don't want to... And Arc Nova is a bit like that to begin with. When you start on 20 appeal, you shouldn't lose the game. You should be able to do it on 20 appeal.
Absolutely, yeah.
I now play it on 5 appeal, and I'm on a 50% thing with that. It's like half the time I will lose on 5 appeal, and in one game I broke even, like literally only just got it, and sometimes I've won. Like, I mean, the cards could hose you a bit more with lower appeal, but I think that's like the good blend of challenge. 0 is like, yeah, you want to go hardcore mode for that, but yeah, 20 is easy mode. Thankfully Underwater Cities is a great multiplayer game for me, so I wouldn't trade it away. I still love it. I've blinged my copy out quite a bit.
As I say, for me, I kind of cut down on the Vita Lacerda games. I could have put any of them on there, basically. You know, Lisboa, the Gallerist, Vinos. You know, any of those could have really gone on my top 10 list, as they are Euro games that I get out. I think maybe one, and I would need to play it more, is Freedom: The Underground Railroad.
Okay, yeah, that does actually work solo. Yeah,
it does. It works solo. You know, taught me a lot. It's a very educational game, obviously very emotive subject as well, but it's backed up by a really solid game underneath everything that's teaching you about what happened in that time period as well. So yeah, you know, that would, I'd need to play it more, but I could see that going on my list at some point.
I mentioned at the start, I have not played Hadrian's Wall solo, but everyone keeps banging on about it, and with the new sponsorship deal I've got on, I hope to maybe get a copy of it and try it solo. Like, I will give it a fair review when I get a chance. This will be like one of those exceptions to the rule where I know it's a flip and right game, but just because of its amount of buzz it's got, I will give it a shot. I know Mark's looking for it because I swear you've got it and like this. In fact, actually,
somewhere. I don't know where
in fact, yeah, I was calling this for your top 10. Actually, I think this was one of the ones I thought. Whatever. I mean, I've seen that there's a solo mode for Concordia. You're not going to convince me to play that game, period, let alone solo. Newton's actually not bad solo. It's mostly multiplayer solitaire anyway, but it's got some very cool little mechanics in it. It's one of those hidden surprises where I thought, oh, this is going to be some bland point salad. Why would I enjoy this? It's like, nah, it's still on my shelf. So I might have to get that one out again at some point, actually, and try it more solo. But no, that'd be cool. Before we sign off here, because we're now at that 2.5 hour mark, one thing I will stress is that we mentioned a couple of times a video, because we've already done solo games in general, so there is a little bit of an overlap, but you know, mostly they are the thematic, story-driven, Amerithrashy style one. So that list is still there for you to check out if you want to see a slightly different list. Again, not the huge amount of crossover on that one either, although maybe just marginally more than this one. Yeah, we like a lot of stuff similarly, but there's differing, like, oh, these are our favorites. But also check out this one from last year. This is the one we talked about with Lacerda. We did the solo modes of the Lacerda series. Where we spent ages talking about what we thought of every Lacerda game's solo mode, and played God knows how many hours worth of Lacerda games beforehand to basically get to grips with that. That was a bit of a mission, but check out that video if you want, like, the Lacerda games specifically, because you know we get into detail on all of them, even the ones that, like I say, I don't. You know, Mark talks about escape plan and more than I do, but then I can come back on something like Lisboa and that. So there's quite a few on there to
I think
mention on it.
at one point, Luke, it might be worth if we speak to our friends at Mind Clash Games, maybe we do a similar thing on all the Mind Clash solo modes. Basically, now that will take some going through, and that will mean you'll have to learn to carry on solo.
Don't give the chat ideas because they'll probably want it. But I mean, I don't know if I've got the patience for that. Is that Anachrony Chronosis? I'd have to relearn it again. I've not even tried to carry on solo. Cerebria would be insane. Then we're getting Perseverance in the post soon.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's
a challenge. That
I mean, I think that would just be too much. I just don't know if I'd be able to fit the time in to learn. At most, I'd be able to play the solo modes once each, and I just don't think that would work. At least with the Lacerdas, I can say I tried them more than once, but it'd be a hard sell to do the So there's got to be an easier series of games that we can call upon than Mind Clash. Yeah, they're good. See. Can't we just accept that they're good? I don't know. We'll go with it. But yeah, cheers everyone who's been around. I mean, I don't expect anybody to have been here since the start, although a few people have. Well done for you.
Thank you very much.
For your stamina and perseverance on that one. But yeah, some good ones there for the honourable mentions. I say we crossed over once, so you're getting 19 unique games for just Euros, and there's probably at least a good 17, 18 unique ones on the other list as well. So plenty of chats, and there's a lot of good solo games like Coffee Roaster and Underfolding Skies and that just didn't make the list, that I still really give props to as well. I questioned whether Underfolding Skies was Euro or not though, but I don't know, wouldn't make the top 10 list, but it's still really good. So there's a lot of it, and very quickly, Newsfjord, I bounced off it as a multiplayer, so I haven't tried it solo, but people talk highly about it, so there's more lovers than haters for it, certainly on that. But yeah, cheers everybody, check out Not Board Game. If you haven't been put off by his choices or some of his comments, go at least subscribe to his channel and find out more. Granted, Mage Knight was not on this list, but it was on your other one, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't. It goes in and out my top 10, depending on whether I've played it in a year or not, basically, and that's the thing. So if I played it, it will go onto a list. If I haven't, haven't. And Mage Knight, don't get me wrong, I love Mage Knight. It's never leaving my collection.
I was trying to save you from Paul. It's like trying to get Paul to resubscribe to you or something. It's like,
well, he's unsubscribed twice because I because I didn't put Spirit Island and Arnak in my list. So yeah.
Well, he said, like, I'm unsubscribing if it's, like, no Mage Knight. And it's like, but he knows I hate Mage Knight. So it's like, I can't exactly recover from that. It's like, and if you don't put Mage Knight on, are you unsubscribing from him or me? Because I'm just the messenger at this point. It's like, I have no responsibility for what Mark puts on his list. So, it's all a surprise. But nah. I gotta say, subscribe to both. We'll do more of these. As certainly if it's solo focused, it will probably be us. Although it'll be interesting to see what we chat about next. Really, we'll have to come up with some ideas in the future. But even there, but just not Mind Clash solo discussion, please. That's too much. Cool. Too much. There'll be something else for that. But cheers everybody for joining in. If you, like I say, watch it later, watched it live, just by all means, leave it in the comments. Tell us your favourite solo Euro game, particularly if it wasn't even on our lists, because there was a lot of ones out there. And there like I say, Imperium, I nearly had oh God, did I forget that? And it's like, no, I'm safe. But there could be others out there that I might have just not considered. But I'd looked through my collection, and this is where I think it's definitive. But I'd be interested to hear what others have to say. So, yep, without further ado, we're going to sign off once I find it. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.